Exciting night. Exciting night. We got a great guest tonight, Jack Cambria, who I crossed paths with. Never worked with him, but crossed paths with him because my partner, Benny Torado, a great detective, was on his team. So I heard nothing but good things. You're a true leader, and I just can't wait to hear your story, Jack. So welcome. Welcome to the tavern.
Well, thank you so much, Pete. And thank you, Tommy, also for inviting me. And Tommy, although I appreciate the invite more than you can even imagine, but the real invite that I want is one day to come over to your house and so I can taste one of those beautiful meals that you show on the videos all the time. I'll even bring the wine. Okay.
Oh, big guy. So my wife went to culinary school for a hobby. And so she's introduced me to wine and food and the culinaries, and we're foodies. We're obnoxious foodies, to be honest with you. And we're going to talk about a steak in Italy, by the way. And we're going to talk about the Irishman who is more in love with Italy than Ireland, much to the chagrin of all my Irish shanty friends. But I just love Italy, and I love the food, and I love the experience and the wine, and I think it's a better value than the French. And that's a whole nother story. But Jack, anytime you're welcome here. Pete is welcome here. We live in a town that's a great long weekend place. A lot of people from Baltimore, DC, not much else, but it's a great long weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We have great vineyards out here. It's Thomas Jefferson. Ooh. Thomas Jefferson brought the vines from France to Charlottesville, and they've been growing wine vines here forever. Since the country was formed, then there was a prohibition, so it was only for the religious sacraments and stuff. And then they redid it. So we got a couple of places that have got some old vines. We're probably 30 or 40 years into some good vines. So the older, the better. But we'll talk about that later. But Jack, you always, as all of our guests and anybody who wants to friend me on any social media, you want to come down here and spend some time with us. We'll shoot the shit and talk about police work and talk about life and talk about food and wine and all that stuff.
I love it. Thank you.
So that's great. So thanks, Jack. Thanks for doing the research, by the way. So now you know a lot about me. So
I do.
All right. So since it is the tavern, and I'm gonna pull up some stuff here. So we got. Oh, Jack, I forgot to pull a picture up. So we're gonna go right to the menu. I have 100 pictures of Jack, but I forgot to put his guest photo up. So Pete's drinking H2O. You want to tell everybody why you're drinking H2O? Lightweight? So.
Yeah, my right hip is killing me, brother. So I had to pop some pills, and I don't want to overdose on the tavern. It might get a few extra clicks, but I think in the long term it wouldn't be good for me.
And then I'm for Jack. I'm doing a Negroni. I normally have some kind of an Italian on the shelf. Definitely Brunello is my go-to. But a Barolo and Amaro. I want to say I love Lambrusco's because I love the fizz of a red. It's pretty cool. But I didn't have anything in my fridge, so I went with a Negroni to stay Italian, and I misspelled Cambria because Jack, what did you find for?
Let me show the audience if you can see the name on that. Cambria, and it's no relation whatsoever. I'm not plugging the wine. I saw it probably about 20 years ago on the shelf. So, oh my gosh, Cambria wine! I got to try that. And so I did, and I've become a fan of it ever since. So it's one of my go-tos. I'm very much into the Italian wines as well, and also some French as well.
Yeah. So it is the tavern, everybody, and we do enjoy telling good stories and meeting good friends over a cocktail, a glass of wine, a beer. However, we do not support overindulging, self-medicating, and if you're in a problem, don't go into that place. So Pete, this is your place, so I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah. But like I say at every episode, man, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay not to do something about it. You're in a bad spot, man. Talk to somebody, get some help, meditate, find what works for you, man. But don't stay in that dark place. It's not a good place to be, man. There's a way out. And too many of our brothers and sisters take the ultimate way out, which is not the answer. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem, not the way to go.
Thank you, Pete.
Take care of yourselves out there.
Yep. So, and please don't drink and drive. There's a thing called Uber, Lyft is no excuse. I have a son on the job in DC. I have a son who lives in DC, but he's doing some other kind of stuff. They like to go out, you know, they're young kids. They're, you know, they've been told there's no reason. They know it. Please don't ever drink and drive. Leave the car, leave the keys. Don't ever get behind the wheel. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to others, please. So we love to have a cocktail and we love to socially connect with friends and family, but please don't do those kinds of things. So I gotta hit the comments right away. Let's do some comments first before we get into some videos and before we get into Jack's career, which is amazing. And folks who are listening tonight, you're going to be amazed at some of the incredible things and the really, really demonstrable reach that Jack has, not only in New York City, but across the globe. So amazing Ant, who called me today, Jack. Ant was one of the people who reached out and said, I can't believe it. I'm so excited for Jack tonight. So
well, thank you, Ant. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Terry Murnane, Brooklyn North Homicide Detective. Good evening, everyone.
Oh my gosh, I know Terry. Hello, Terry.
Yep.
Wow.
Matt O'Brien. Hello, Jack.
Matt. Hi, Matt.
So Amazing said, check out the film I worked with Jack. Provide the crime scene photos. I believe that was the Hold the Fire trailer that we talked about earlier. Hold Your Fire, right? So Amazing Ant, thanks for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's go through anybody else chiming in before. Oh man, Lily Riggs, she's doing her thing. Sick and tired, Angry Mo. We got some people overflowing for some other stuff. I just want to make sure. All right, we're good. Man, the chats are exploding. All right, we're good, but mostly just everyone getting together and getting ready for the show. So Rob Lukash. So what was really funny is you know Rob from SOP.
Hello, Inspector.
He retired Chief.
Oh, Chief. I'm out of touch. Apologies, sir. Chief.
Don't demote him. Jack, you demote him.
I will put him as an inspector.
What was really funny is Ron, Layson, and Rob were talking and doing a promo for their show, for this show. And he was talking about, and Ron was talking about HNT, and Rob was like, don't forget he was ESU. He got defensive.
I was. 16 years, yeah.
So it's really funny. So anyway, there's a video that is the most beautiful video I've ever seen as a tribute to anybody retiring from the job. And it's really long. And I might skip through it. But I want to start because for everyone, this will give you a sense of who Jack is before we get into it and let Jack talk to the details. And we have a bunch of pictures that we normally do as well. And I'll go through it. And there's a segment in the video that is like about 3 minutes of just pictures and music. And I know a lot of the listeners on the podcast don't have the visuals. So out of respect for them, I'll fast forward through those pictures. And then later, the pictures that Jack has supplied with us, he can talk through them. So if you're only a listener, you can at least get some reference. But I really just have to do this because it was really so good. So let's do this. Upcoming seminars. Let's see if that's the one. Share. And then we get this one, and we get this one to add to the stage. And let me know if you guys get the volume.
If you remember the movie, The Taking of Pelham 1 to 3, you may recall the hostage negotiator played by John Turturro. That part was modeled on a real NYPD hostage negotiator, Jack Cambria, a legend in the NYPD. Jack Cambria, a legend in the NYPD.
The actor John Turturro played Cambria in the movie The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
This is not a good idea, Your Honor. Don't talk. Don't engage with him. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for a long time. When you look at John Turturro, John became Jack. From his suit to his yellow tie to his blue shirt to his mannerisms. And Jack was on the set.
We called him Gentleman Jack. Why? Because he's a gentleman to everyone. To the worst person in the world, he'd be a gentleman to. And that's what makes him so successful.
There's something about this guy that makes me want to talk to him. The magic of his It's also why he was perfect for this job.
To know Jack is to know why he is so good at his job. He interacts with people on an amazing level. He gets close to you. He makes you feel like family.
People were looking at me, I was looking at them, and then I would stop and say, "Good morning. Good morning, officer." Oh my goodness, this stuff works.
6-year-old Lieutenant Jack Cambria retires as the longest-running head of the hostage negotiating team, holding the position for the past 14 years. Commissioner Bill Bratton called him a model for hostage negotiators around the world. Cambria was nicknamed Gentleman Jack by his colleagues for showing true empathy and compassion during those tense standoffs. Cambria plans to stay busy during his retirement, teaching hostage negotiation to private companies and law enforcement.
We have confirmation that one firefighter is down.
2 weeks ago on Staten Island, Cambria was the chief negotiator at the standoff. He even flew in the barricaded man's mother from Delaware to try to help.
They exchanged that they loved each other. And at that point, Mr. Tyree indicated that he was going to surrender.
Cambria leaves knowing he's led a very successful hostage team. They get about 40 calls a month. He left today in a 72 Fury, a reminder of how the department's changed and improved on his watch.
After more than 3 decades with the NYPD, the man who heads the department's hostage negotiation team is retiring. Jack Cambria spent 33 years with the police department and 14 years as hostage team leader. He was in action just 2 weeks ago in Staten Island when Garland Tyree set fire to his home and shot a firefighter before shooting himself.
Get back. Man with a gun.
Policing is about compassion, and we demonstrate that every day as negotiators. And now it's extending with our trainings into, even down to the patrol force. When responding to an incident involving police officers, the rules are that the rules remain the same.
Well, for decades, he has been the man called in to New York's most tense situations. Lieutenant Jack Cambria, the commander of the NYPD's hostage negotiation team, has been involved in every major negotiation in recent memory.
Okay, so here's where the videos and the pictures, I'm going to do about 30 seconds of them. They're awesome, but it's about 4 minutes of these, which is just too long for the podcast, but we'll let it go.
There is a drum that beats steady and strong. It does not know defeat. I feel it power and know the sound of true belief in every soul.
And I hate to break it up because they are awesome, but then we'll get to some interviews at the end.
Career that spans more than 33 years in a short video. Well, you don't. But I hope that you were able to get a small sense of what it was that took me from patrol in Brooklyn's 72nd Precinct, where I had the good fortune to serve as a police officer, sergeant, and lieutenant, then to the Emergency Service Unit, where I worked in those same 3 ranks for over 16 years, to finally, my beloved hostage negotiation team, where I served for over 14 wonderful years. The one common theme that helped shape the person I've become was the amazing people I encountered throughout each of those assignments.
That's right.
All of you helped make a good career into a glorious career. And to all of you who have made me the very best that I can be by allowing me to retain a part of you, I with profound gratitude thank you all. My name is Lieutenant Jack Cambria, commanding officer of the hostage negotiation team. Retired.
I love it. Okay, there's another minute of that, but I can't keep going because, again, we have listeners only, but I think they get the sense. That is a wonderful video, Jack. God bless you. Well, all right, so that sets the tone, I think, for the audience. We're at 150 some odd, 120 something minutes going up and down. So it's really a good sign for early viewers. So thanks everybody for getting in right at the front. So Jack, we saw the video. They got a sense of your full work in a nutshell. But why don't you walk us through where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Where'd your family come from? First generation, second generation, where all that, and then walk us through getting onto the job.
Okay, so go Brooklyn. Yo, forget about it.
Ooh,
wow.
So
I was born in Brooklyn. In fact, I'm still here today. I've lived in different places over the years. I did about 5 years. I lived about 5 years in Manhattan. I was in Long Island, Nassau County for about another 5 years, Glen Cove, which was all very nice. But I always found my way back to Brooklyn. So my parents were here. My grandparents were born in Italy, in Sicily, on both sides. So I go back there very often. And I even do some teaching out there, or a lot of teaching actually. And for those classes are more for the corporate entity. These are corporate negotiators. These are business managers, where the principles of negotiation are the same, whether they be in police hostage negotiations or in corporate negotiations, minus the guns and the violence, of course, on the side of the police. But the principles, what are they? Well, it's about gaining rapport with that individual on the other side, getting them to trust you. Number two, and then three, looking to close the deal. It's much more complicated than that, of course, but those are the basic principles: gaining rapport, establishing trust, and closing the deal. So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Getting back to your question, went to school here in Brooklyn, New York.
What schools did you go to?
So I went to a grammar school, public school 226 in Bensonhurst section of Brooklyn.
Yep.
High school, I went to David A. Booty, which is on Avenue S for those Brooklynites out there on Sports Street. And then finally went to Grady Vocational and Technical High School. Which is
I'm a Grady alum.
I graduated
in 83.
Oh, my gosh, you're a baby. But 1972, Tom.
Yeah. Automotive.
So I took up automotive.
Automotive.
Oh, my gosh.
I worked in the industry for 5 years, and I was like tired of breaking my knuckles, Jack?
Oh, my gosh. Look at you. Oh, my gosh. So we probably have a lot of, maybe some of the teachers in common, although they were probably a little bit older, and they probably retired by the time you got there. So I didn't stay with it. I tried to kind of get into the field a little bit, but it just didn't really work for me. So at that point, I started taking all the different civil service exams, the police, the fire department, the bus driver, sanitation. And I had passed the bus driver test for the New York City Transit Authority. And I started processing for that, the medical and all that's involved with that. And as I was doing that, I got a letter from the police department asking if I'd be interested in joining the police department, or at least, trying to test for it. And I said, maybe I'd like to be a police officer. I always respected police officers when I was growing up. In fact, where I lived as a young child was right around the corner from the 66th precinct. And at the time, they used to muster outside in the summertime. And I remember as a young child, my mom, going past the avenue, 16th Avenue, for those Brooklynites. Yep. I used to watch them, and I was very impressed with that, So I guess that had some impact on my decision years later to become a police officer. And so I started the process for that. And, the long and short of it, I finally did, get accepted. And went through the police academy like everybody. And then I went into the training unit. A training unit called NSU 11, which stands for Neighborhood Stabilization Unit, Zone 11. And I started doing that for about a year. You have to do 20 radio car tours with it was a training officer who was a uniformed detective, George Bofer. If he's out there, I don't know if he's still with us, but I kiss you, George. He taught me so much about not just about policing, but about life. And then I initially went into the 78th precinct for a very short time, 6 months. Then something called co-terminology kicked in, where they aligned the precinct borders with the community boards. If you remember that, Tom and Pete.
Yep.
And finally, I was able to get to the 72nd precinct, which I had requested actually. When I saw there was an opening, they were looking for some people in the 72nd precinct because they expanded their borders. So I got into the 72nd precinct as a young officer, and there I stayed. They started in I think it was June of 1984, the new concept in policing called CPOP. Anybody remember CPOP? Community Policing on Patrol. And so I was asked to do that. So I got into it. There was a foot post kind of thing. So, okay, And I did that for about a year. And then I was offered the anti-crime unit in the 72nd precinct, plain clothes. So I did that for a while. And from that point, I had applied to the Emergency Service Unit and went for an interview. And this was right after Eleanor Bumpers, if you remember Eleanor Bumpers.
Yes, yes. If you want, feel free to just give a short for the audience. A lot of people might not know Eleanor Bumpers, major pivot in the job.
Yeah, so Eleanor Bumpers was a elderly black female in the South Bronx who was shot and killed by the Emergency Service Unit by one particular officer named Stephen Sullivan when she brandished a 12-inch butcher knife and started, menacing and charging towards him. So he shot and killed her with a shotgun, and you can probably imagine at the time there was a tremendous storm of controversy. Steve Sullivan was transferred out of emergency service, and a lot of morale issues going on within the issue. So a lot of people were transferring out, and at the time I already had an application in to go to that unit. I was always impressed with the emergency service. I would be on a lot of jobs with them while I was doing my precinct work. I said, I'd like to be like them guys. I was very impressed with them. So I applied, and then the Eleanor Bumpers incident occurred, and a lot of officers from ESU were looking to just kind of bail and get out. Right? So I was interviewed along with many others, and I was accepted. So we had mentioned before we started on air, Hugh McGowan. Hugh McGowan was a lieutenant. He was my predecessor in the hostage negotiation team. And he, in fact, recommended me to take his place once he retired from the hostage team as the commander. But Hugh McGowan was a lieutenant at the time in emergency service, and he was the one that interviewed me, and he's the one that accepted me and brought me into it. So Hugh McGowan is most responsible, I think, for my career path as it took place. By first accepting me into ESU, and then recommending me and endorsing me for the hostage position of the commander of the hostage negotiation team. So again, I always pay great homage to Hugh McGowan. So so my career chronology is very easy to put on paper. 7-2 precinct as a police officer, ESU as a police officer. I then got promoted to sergeant, back to the 72nd precinct, where I worked there, and then they revamped the CPOP program to community policing, so I got involved with that as a sergeant. And then I was accepted back into ESU after about a year and a half at the precinct. So that back to ESU now as a sergeant. I got promoted to lieutenant, and guess where I went back to? 72nd precinct.
Go figure.
And it was no accident, by the way, So, and then I did not long at that point, maybe up to about 6 months in the precinct, and then I was invited back to go to ESU as a lieutenant. So there I was a citywide supervisor, I was an operations coordinator, and then I was a training lieutenant. And then I was on a job when I was doing citywide supervision, and I was on a job, it was in Brooklyn. And Hugh McGowan, he was on the scene as well. Most of the jobs we were on together. Him as H&T, myself as ESU. And I was negotiating at the door as a lieutenant. And I had a success in enabling that individual to come out from that hostile environment, so we didn't have to go in. And I would do that over the years. I kind of always bought into the principle of negotiation. I didn't want to go through that door. I can get hurt. My guys can get hurt. Or worse, right? So the preferred approach, of course, is having that individual come out to us. So I had a fair amount of success in doing that, just talking to people, their level, with respect. And it went a long way. A lot of the people that we dealt with on the other side of that door were very distrustful of the police, and sometimes for good reason, I guess, right? So here comes this guy now speaking to them in respectful tones and, trying to make common sense with them, trying to help you, trying to show that I'm an advocate for these individuals. I want them to come out, right? Because I don't want to go in, right? Unless we had to, and we had to many times. So I had a fair amount of success with that over the years. And that last job, when Hugh McGowan was with me, he was in the background. When it was over, he pulls me to the side and he says, Jack, I'm looking to retire very soon, and I'm trying to find a suitable replacement. And I've observed you over the years, and I've seen that you always kind of bought into the principles of negotiation, and I'd like to recommend you for the position. What do you think? And I had to think about it. I said, can I get back to you in a few days? I mean, I love the emergency service work. I'm climbing bridges, going through doors when we had to, right? Doing rescue work. So I loved it. Citywide was my playground. The whole city was my playground. So after a few days, I got back to him. I said, you can submit my name. And if it doesn't work, I'm still in ESU, right? So he did. And it took a while because the chief of detectives at the time, Chief Ali, William Ali, and he was a tough guy.
Yeah.
So, and I understood
he passed away. So
he did, yeah.
Chief Ali, rest in peace. So.
Yeah, 9/11 illnesses, yeah.
Yes.
He spent a lot of time over at the dumps over at Staten Island, where they were putting all the debris. But he didn't initially look to embrace me because I was from ESU. He was the chief of detectives, right? So he wanted to be a detective lieutenant. So they actually interviewed 7 different detective lieutenants before they even got to me. So I never heard anything back. So I kind of forgot about it. And I'm talking, months. So I kind of forgot about it. It didn't work out. I'm still in emergency service. And finally, I get called in. I get called in by he was an inspector at the time. He retired as a deputy chief, Jeremiah Quinlan, for that name.
I know Jerry Quinlan. Yep.
Yeah. And he was honest with me because, Jack, I'm going to be honest with you. You're the 8th lieutenant that I'm interviewing for the position, and the other 7 lieutenants, they were detective lieutenants. They weren't interested in talking to EDPs, right? That's what he said to me. So I had a resume. Hugh McGowan, when I was a sergeant in the ESU, he invited me to go to the hostage negotiation course, which was a 2-week course. So I had that on my resume that I could talk about. And then coming from ESU, you're the first ones at the scene of these type of incidents, after patrol. So I did a lot of talking, a lot of negotiating on the door. So I had somewhat of a resume to talk about. And then he went and recommended me to the chief of detectives. He articulated why he thought I might have been maybe a good fit for the position. And finally, he relented and said, "Okay, take it." But he said, "If anything goes wrong, I'm going to blame you. I'm going to hold you responsible, Inspector." But I tried.
So that's really fun. So we don't have to name the 7 commanders involved, but I was probably in the detective bureau when this was all going down, and I'd be interested. But we don't need to talk about that. But tell me why 7 squad commanders, just because it belongs to the detective bureau, did they think that was the better pedigree for a negotiator? Because I think you could come from anywhere. And then the fact that you're doing these high risk entries and you're at now, because I, as a squad commander, anytime it was a really high risk, we called in emergency service, sometimes the A team, right? And then we would just be outside waiting for you guys to tell us everything is good and clear. So you guys are actually having those meaningful conversations. So walk us through what they might have thought a detective might have a better pedigree than you might. Not to say one's right or wrong, but what was Ali's thinking?
So excellent question, Tom. And in fact, the hostage negotiation team, in fact, it's the only unit in the entire police department that has the word team in its name, hostage negotiation team, right?
Right.
There's units, there's bureaus, there's squads, and so on. But the hostage negotiation team falls under the detective bureau, and that's how it started all those years ago. So there were 4 incidents that the NYPD looked at in looking to finally establish a hostage negotiation team. The first one was Attica prison riots. That was in 1971. But that was hundreds of miles from the borders of New York City. So the NYPD said, all right, we know about that. And nothing else was done with that. Then during the summer of 1972, there was what we call the Dog Day afternoon bank robbery. In fact, they made a movie out of it starring Al Pacino. That was in Brooklyn on Avenue P. So that was about a 12-hour event. And that was the very first real hostage incident that they had the police detectives, the detective sergeant from, I think it was the robbery squad, who was negotiating from the cuff. He was talking back and forth and, come on out. No, I'm not coming out. There was no theory behind it. There was no, response protocols because it was a new kind of concept. Followed 1 month later by the Munich Olympic massacre. That was in September of 1972. And the end result of that was 11 Israeli athletes and coaches were killed in an abortive rescue attempt, along with a police officer and those 5 Palestinian terrorists that took over the dormitories housing those athletes. So it was at that time we had a chief on the job. He was the head of the Special Operations Division. His name was Simon Eisdorfer. And he approached the then police commissioner, a man by the name of Patrick V. Murphy. And he said, Commissioner, this is something that could very easily happen here in New York City. We have a large Jewish population. So the chief recommended to the commissioner that we should have detectives trained as hostage negotiators. The commissioner saw the wisdom in that. All right, put something together and bring it back to me. And as he was working on that, they identified Harvey Schlossberg, who was a detective on our job. But Harvey also had his PhD in forensic psychology. And on the side, off duty, he would do, clients. He would work with clients. So they tapped him, and they told him to start to put together some guidelines for managing hostage incidents. So Harvey used to tell the story. Harvey's passed, by the way, about almost 2 years now, and we kiss Harvey. Hello, Harvey. But Harvey, they said to him, I put together these guidelines, and Harvey said, well, it's not what I really do. I see clients one-on-one. And a typical police department response was, well, do it anyway. So he did.
Of course. Yeah.
So he did research, and he put kind of a program together. And then the John and Al sporting goods store robbery happened, and that was in Williamsburg in Brooklyn, where 4 members of the then radical group, the Black Liberation Army, entered into the store. They sold guns there, ammunition, to do a robbery. And while they were inside, they were interrupted by the police, and thus began a 47-hour hostage siege with hostages inside, customers and employees and so on. The end result of that was one of our emergency service officers, Stephen Gilroy, was killed during the exchange. Interesting side note of how Stephen Gilroy was killed. You ever hear the adage, 3 on a match? Well, 3 on a match, it's an adage that comes from out of World War I, when these 3 soldiers were in a foxhole in France, and they had limited amount of matches. So they wanted to light a cigarette. Each wanted to have a cigarette, but they wanted to conserve on matches. So they lit 3 cigarettes on 1 match. And there was a sniper looming out in the fields. So when they lit their first match, they alerted the sniper that there was somebody out there. When they lit the second cigarette rather, he scoped in, and when they lit the 3rd cigarette, he took a shot. So it's an adage known as 3 on a match. That's what happened with Steve Gilroy. So Steve Gilroy was positioned behind one of those subway pillars, the train pillars.
Because it was under the elevated line of the J train.
Correct. On Broadway. There you go.
Yep.
And what he did, he looked out one time, and one of the individuals, one of the perpetrators inside the sporting goods store, saw him. When he stuck his head the second time, he makes the statement inside the store, which came out in court testimony later on. If he sticks his head out one more time, he's mine, because he was able to identify his location. And he stuck his head out the 3rd time, and he was shot and killed. In addition, 2 other police officers, I think they were from the 79th precinct, they were shot because they were skipping rounds underneath the radio car where they were hiding. They weren't hiding behind tires, and they were shot in the leg, and that, thank God, non-life threatening. So after that incident, the police commissioner said, okay, are we ready to go with those negotiators? So just prior to that, they selected a new commander named Frank Bowles, who was a lieutenant and made captain later on. And Frank and Harvey were both at the scene there. Again, there was really no negotiators yet. There was just those 2. So right after that, the commissioner said, are we ready to go now? And finally, they identified a class of detectives to be negotiators. So to answer your question, why detectives? Well, at the time, the thinking was that detectives, they know how to ask the right type of questions. The way they dress in business attire as opposed to uniforms, which represent authority. Authority is probably the last thing these individuals need right now in their time of crisis. So there's a couple of reasons for that, and that's why it's under the Detective Bureau. So now that's not the case throughout the rest of the country. So I still teach hostage negotiators across the United States. And across the U.S., it's not under the Detective Bureau, but rather from the patrol forces. So patrol officers and answer 911 calls, but they're trained as hostage negotiators. And if a hostage or barricade situation comes along, then they will redirect from their 911 duties, their patrol duties, and then respond to the incident.
Yeah. Tell you an interesting story, Nick. I tried out for ESU back when it was under housing ESU. With John Coughlin, Vinny Dans, Ralph Pasculo.
Yeah, I worked with them all.
Great guys. I got weeded out because I couldn't climb the Verrazano Bridge. The heights got me out, man. I went back into my van and hid until the end of the climb, and then I went back to my anti-climb.
So it's funny. We have a picture we'll show later of Jack walking on the bridge, And I've always thought about that. And then there's a famous story of Vigiano taking Carrick up to the bridge and teasing him, saying, police commissioner, either talk to talk or walk to walk. And he made him go up and have breakfast and bagels on the top of the bridge. So I get it. I see that being a deal breaker for a lot of cops.
Tell me if I'm wrong, Jack. What happened was I got weeded out on day one because they wanted to do the Verrazano Bridge climb. I couldn't do it, man. I just couldn't do it. I heard the second day they bring them out to some train yard and have people do tasks under trains because a lot of people get weeded out for claustrophobia, which I don't know if that's true or not, but I heard they lost people for that too.
Yeah, people kind of lose, kind of maybe just don't make it for different reasons. There's a lot of issues why they might not, kind of go to. It's a 6-month school that you have to go through, and there's a lot of different facets that you have to do. So scuba diving and all that. So there's a lot of different reasons. And we used to train at the old transit museum on, was it J Street?
Skimmerhorn and J down.
Skimmerhorn, that's it.
Yeah.
So after that would close, we'd go down there with our heavy equipment, air jacking bags and all that.
Jacking up trains and everything.
I know you were transit time. We used to work very closely with the transit issue.
The EMRU, who eventually
EMRU,
we had some good dudes.
So with the merge, that caused some controversy because all these guys that came over, they took so it was ESU and the detectives that were the first people that got put into the NYPD from their respected agencies, and all the transit ERMU or EMRU, I should say, special assignment money, called them POSA, right? Police officer special assignment. So they make more money than all these 10-year experienced ESU cops, and I was a sergeant at the time. So Sarge, so what does that mean? They're making more money than us. They go through the door first. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
I said, guys, their agency took care of them. This agency didn't take care of you guys, right?
Exactly.
But now they all get made detectives after like 18 months. So
So hold on that thought because I want to these little side stories are fun. Pete, I believe right before the merge, Housing started their own emergency service too.
They did. It was about. Not just before, it was about 2 years before. I was in anti-crime. I tried out. I had to go through I had to take the spirometry test where you blow into the tube. You had to take a physical.
Oh, so this was that one. Okay.
Yeah, so I made it through all the physical, made it through the shooting. Day one, it's like we put on our little costumes that we had. We didn't get to wear the uniform. You had to earn the uniform. We looked like elevator mechanics. And I get out of the van and I hear the wind whipping through the cables of the bridge. The trucks go by, the bridge is shaking up and down. I look down, it's like 50 stories down. I look up at the tower, I'm like, now I'm going back in the van. I'll see you guys later. And Ralph Pasculo is a gentleman. He's like, Pete, come on, I'm afraid of heights too. Let's go. I was like, Ralph, good luck, brother. I'm getting back in the fucking van. And I got back in the van and never got out.
He was great. He was really great, Pete Pasculo.
Yeah, so Jack, to your point, their agency being transit took care of them, giving us police officer SA. So the official title was POSA in the codes, right? And they gave them a little bump, whatever it was, maybe at the time $1,000, $2,000 of a delta on top of their salary. But I always felt like, especially being a detective bureau guy, I would have loved to have seen an LA model of first, second, third grade police officers or your SAs, whatever you want to call them, but they remain police officers and they should have remained in the PBA. I believe, and I am not well versed in this and I am not a deep dive on this, but just instinctively, I kind of felt it was a union thing. And the detectives bureau, the DEA said, no, frig you. We want more members.
Probably.
And I'll leave it at that.
That makes sense. Yes, it makes perfect sense indeed.
I'll leave it at that because all of a sudden they get 1,000 more members, right? With all these community services. And not to devalue any of their contributions to the agency, whether it be ESU, community affairs, drivers for executives. I don't care what they are.
Right.
But they're not detectives. And I, not being a pure detective, but Jack, do you know Charlie Wells?
I do. Oh my God.
Charlie Wells is probably the most influential detective bureau person on me as coming over from transit, him embracing me. I was in narcotics working in the 7-7 module. He was the zone captain in 7779. I'm getting goosebumps right now with what that guy means to me. That being said, I think the detective bureau was pure for detectives and investigators in that space. I would love to acknowledge and elevate all the game of really talented people in all the other capacities through the job, but you're not a detective. Like, why are you giving them these tools? And like, I'm glad they're getting first grade and second and first grade and elevating their pensions, and we all want to get paid at the end of the day.
Oh, we do,
you know. But man, like, you got to figure out a better way to differentiate. And the last thing I'm going to say is the suit, the dressing that you mentioned, Jack. Like, I would be so upset. Like, I look at West Coast policing and I see these guys in golf shirts and khakis as detectives. No, a detective wears a suit. A detective commander wears a suit and a tie, and it's tightened up tight. Not even the Brooklyn North crisscross. Like, I didn't even like that. You know what I mean? And because I want that witness or that potential suspect to know that they're dealing with somebody that's different, not better, not elevated, but has more power than the guy you're talking to in the golf shirt and the khakis and the shorts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Housing, Tommy. Housing thought about giving like a specialist rank, not detective specialist, with 2 stripes, like corporal stripes. Right. But that got shot down by the union because they're like, well, if it shows 2 stripes, then that might indicate that person thereby has more responsibility, and so it got nixed. But there were discussions about it. But eventually, they went with the detective specialist shield too. I agree with you. Detective generally, to me, means investigator. Yeah. You know, but whatever.
That does have a certain status, no doubt. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all that goes along.
So all right. So we got a little bit of sidebar because of some things that you mentioned, which was fun. I enjoyed it, Jack. But you got into that. I want, if it's okay with you, because it is your show. So if you poo-poo it, we'll shut it down. I want to do the Hold the Fire trailer on New York City, 1973. It's a 2-minute video. Kind of sets up and explains a lot to what you talked about on the sporting goods store on Broadway. So let's, if it's okay with you, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
And then you can comment after that, and then we're going to get in your career and some pictures and some of the big capers that you worked on and all of that stuff. But this is all building towards the genesis of where Jack Cambria ended up.
2 guys asked me to pick up something from the bottom shelf. And when I stood up, the guy had a 25 automatic. Puts it to my head. Someone outside called the cops.
4 terrorists had been surprised inside the store on Friday afternoon.
No, they didn't know who we were. Holy crap, 12 hostages inside a sporting goods store loaded with firearms. We opened the door. There were cops everywhere.
That's when things went haywire.
The perps certainly had evil intent. Kill the hostages, go out in the blaze of glory.
We didn't want to go out in the blaze of glory. Well, if you're going to execute me, and I got all these guns in it, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to defend myself. All my life, police was killing black people.
I know for a fact that cops aren't racist. We never discriminated against anybody.
So I'm going to stop it for a minute because there's copyright infringement, and it's no intention to infringe on copyright, but I want to tell this story based on a trailer. I think we should share trailers, but this pause is intentional because they look at the body of the video. So
sure.
They get into it. So, I mean, look at these uniforms. Look at the collars and the chokers. Like, Jack, did you wear a choker?
No.
Oh.
It was that was before my time. I came out in 1982, and this had ended like around 1979, I think it was, the choker, along with the leather jackets around 1980, 1981. So I just missed it.
We wish we all wore chokers.
Yeah, very impressive uniform indeed.
Oh, they are impressive. All right, back to the movie.
A story of violence inside a sporting goods store in Brooklyn.
Botched robbery, killed a police officer. I don't think that they believed they could get out alive.
Bullets was flying all over the store. They wanted blood.
I was terrified. We're through.
Cops usually wind up overreacting. Kill them all.
No. I believe in talking.
Harvey Schlossberg. He didn't look like a cop. He didn't act like a cop.
How well did you know Harvey?
Oh, very well. In fact, I sought him out when I took over the team. I took over the team in late July of 2001, so just about 5 weeks or so before the attack on the World Trade Center. And when the World Trade Center happened, then I was called back into ESU, but now on a temporary assignment because I was now assigned to the Detective Bureau. And I was down at the World Trade Center site for about 3 months. I know we're going to talk about that later on. But when I got back, so it was like late December, I sought out both Harvey, because they didn't know me. I knew the history. I like history a little bit of the police department, and I learned all about Harvey Schlossberg and also Frank Bowles. I reached out to both of them, and I kind of got them back involved with the unit, with training issues. So I did training twice a year. Mostly I would do it at Kingsborough Community College, and I would, they would give us the auditorium there. They were very nice and gracious to us. And Harvey would come. That's his wife, Tony Schlossberg, and I'd invite Frank Bowles, and they'd all get up and, this is our history. This is where it all started. And they'd tell the stories of how kind of we got started and as a unit. So to answer your question, Tom, I knew him very well.
Okay, good. Got about another minute.
But he had his PhD in psychology.
I believe police can influence people without bullying.
The most difficult thing in the world to change is a culture. Now we're going to talk to these individuals.
It was revolutionary. This is the birthplace of hostage negotiation. You're looking to find that key that opens that guy's head.
My mother?
Do anything you can to make a conversation. You must get them to talk.
We're trying to figure out a way to end this thing.
The crowd got out of hand.
You might have a massacre on your hands.
Nobody really knows what the next move is going to be.
So I could go further. It's a lot more of that. And again, I'm worried about copyright infringement. If you play the whole thing, the algorithm kind of crushes you. We're not trying to steal their thunder, but we're trying to promote the HNT and Jack, your career. So with that, I'd love to keep playing it. I don't know that there's anything more that they couldn't understand, but this was New York City's. You mentioned the other incidents, Attica, Dog Day Afternoon, which was my neighborhood growing up in Brooklyn as well. Passing that Chase Manhattan Bank. It was what was it? Manhattan. What was
I think it was Chase Manhattan. It was Chase Manhattan. It was on Avenue P in East 3rd Street.
Yeah, like East 3rd or something like that.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. I would love to show the rest for everybody, but I want to make sure I say it right. Hold the fire, right?
Hold your fire, yeah.
Hold your fire. Hold your fire. So go check it out. Go watch.
Yeah, recommended viewing.
Please do. It's the origin from New York City perspective. So, comment on that. That was set everything up, and then we'll get into your career, Jack, and some of the pictures, and you can comment on all the stuff that you've done since you took over as HNT.
Sure. So that line you heard, Al Baker was my lieutenant in the emergency service. We are now very good friends. He was the one that just made the comment that he believes in his heart that no police officers are racist. So I was invited to the premiere on that video because I was a part of it. They interviewed me throughout the video, and the audience was a mixed audience when I was in it. They rented an audience, the theater, I think it was 14th Street in Manhattan. And when he made that comment on the big screen, I could hear the whole audience would gasp, "Yeah, bullshit, yeah," and that really upset me. Because I know most cops are not racist. I'm not racist. I can probably say to you as well, you're not racist.
I say this all the time.
It's a
I
perception.
put my hands on a lot of people. It never had anything to do with the color of their skin. It had to do with their behavior.
Thank you. So yeah. So that comment, when that happened at the theater, I kind of upset me a little bit. And I told the filmmaker too. I said, I'm not sure what the message we're trying to put out here, but what Al said is absolutely true. So Al Baker, he's the president of an organization that I'm part of, a very big part of it, called REMA. REMA is the Retired Emergency Man's Association. And it started out with just a few emergency cops who were retired, and it just grew and grew and grew. Now there's hundreds of members. And every April we do a reading of the names of those killed in the line of duty, not only for emergency service, but also all members of SOD, Special Operations Division, and it's done over at Floyd Bennett Field. And at the time, a very brief story. At the time, Al and the previous president of that association reached out to me. I was still working. I was in headquarters. And hey, Jack, we do the readings of the names every year, and we'd like to put pictures on and do a PowerPoint presentation. I said, oh my gosh, what a great idea. I said, yeah, thank you very much. But we don't have access to it anymore because we're retired, and you're not. But maybe you can get those pictures for us. So, okay, I can try. I said, maybe that can be done. How many names are you looking for? And at the time, there was like 54 names. 54 names. So anyway, long short, they send me the names, the information, and I go up to it was a lieutenant in the employee relations unit, and I say to her, "This is what I'm looking for." Because yeah, we can do that. How many names are you looking for? 54. And she goes out of her mind. 54. Well, I hope you don't want it tomorrow. So anyway, about a month and a half later or so, she calls me. She got out of the 54 names, she got about 48 pictures of those 54 names. So, oh my God, it's amazing. So I call Tony and Al Baker back, and this is what I got. I'm so proud of myself. Oh my gosh, that's great. Oh my God, Jack, it's amazing. Yeah. So we're looking to put those on a PowerPoint presentation, but the only problem is that we don't do PowerPoint, and you do. So anyway, I got stuck with that job. So I put them all on a PowerPoint presentation, and every year now we show it at the end of April.
Didn't Al come to ATF for a short time after he left the NYPD?
Oh, did he? I don't know that.
Yeah, and he invented this shield called the Bat Shield.
That's him.
He was with ATF for a couple of years, and then
he
disappeared.
Yeah, he invented the shield. It looks like a little bit like a Batman shield, but yeah. Good guy. He was one of my mentors. One of my mentors.
Okay, so Jack, why don't we do this? I'm going to pull up some pictures. Let's walk through some really cool pictures, candid shots. I know there's hundreds, if not thousands of them. Some really good ones. I'm just going to roll pictures. You and Pete have a conversation while I do this because I'm not good at multitasking. So.
It was just an early incident, and there's a big mistake in that picture that I was not wearing a helmet, nor was my partner of the day, Richie Bassetti. So, but that's that changed. We teach that now. The helmet and the vest are a package deal. That was a search for a perpetrator. I think that was in Canarsie, Brooklyn, as I might remember. Yeah.
I grew up. I lived in Canarsie too. So East 85th and Foster Avenue.
You know that? Okay, I don't even know that. All right.
So Jack, if you can, try to date the photo because it's fun.
Sure.
We were talking about an incident before, and I was like, man, what year was he talking about? So try to date the photo if you can.
All right. So I came into emergency service as a police officer in 1986. I got promoted to sergeant in 1990. So I was there just almost 5 years. It was about 4.5 years. So this is somewhere between that time frame, 1987, 1988, thereabouts. That picture.
How long did ESU use the Mini 14, the Ruger?
Oh, that was used for as long as I can remember. When I first went into it, that's what we were using. They now use another version, the M4, which is the same round, 223 round.
Right.
But that's an Ithaca shotgun that I'm holding, and Richie's holding the. You're right, the Mini 14.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on a second, everyone. So if you're watching, you can see the video. The photos, which is great. If you're listening, we'll do the commentary. But I'm going to pull up a commentary. So Vince, K9, X9F, whoever you are, Jack, Dinosaur here. Laugh out loud. Here's some names for you to go down memory lane: Bob Loudon, John Gorman, rest in peace, Dave Fitzpatrick, Ann Sawinski, Joe Conway, Bruce Myers, Frank Gallagher, Chief Nicastro, which I certainly know, but
yeah. So Bob Loudon, he was H&T number 2. I was H&T number 5, just to give some context. So Frank Bowles was H&T number 1. He was the first commander of the hostage team. When Frank retired, then Bob took over for Frank. Then John Gorman was H&T number 3. So when Bob retired, then John took over the team. So yeah, he passed away about maybe 2 years ago now. A great man.
So McGowan's 4 and you're 5?
Correct.
What are we up to now?
Now it's up to number 9. So
Any
interesting.
shout outs? You want to give shout outs to the 6, 7, 8, 9?
Yeah, so following me was Lieutenant Dave Nielsen. He was very short time, only about 6 months with Dave. Then he went over the cold case. After
those guys.
Yeah. After Dave was Chris Zimmerman, Lieutenant Chris Zimmerman.
I know Chris, yep.
Yeah, he did it for a few years, maybe up to 4 years. And he got an offer he couldn't refuse from the Port Authority Police that they were going to hire him as a captain. So he was able to retire as a detective commander, got that very nice pension, good for him, making now whatever he was making with the Port Authority Police. And he just recently got promoted to a deputy inspector in the Port Authority Police. So I'm still very much in touch with him, very good friends with Chris, and wish him always the very best. After Chris was Mike Falk. He was a 6'7" commander. So hello to Mike if he's out there. He lasted about a year and a half or so. And then after Mike was the current commander, which is Mike Tomeo, Lieutenant Mike Tomeo. And he's been doing it, I think, almost 4 years, going on 5. So I have the bragging right of being the longest tenured commander of the team since its history at 14 years of doing that. But Mike Tomeo's a young guy, so he might beat me at one point, you know.
So, Jack, as a Brooklyn guy, I got to be honest with you. Anyone starts getting close, you know, we know people, you know.
That's right.
So anyone starts getting close, we're going to preserve the legacy of Jack Cambria.
Right.
So,
there you go.
guys, if you start creeping into 12 years, start looking over your shoulder.
I might be giving you a call there, Tommy, indeed.
Well, thanks for acknowledging all the guys that followed you. It's a little shout out to everybody.
Yeah, indeed. And Mike is always very nice to me. In fact, he invites me whenever he does a new class. He invites me in to say hello to the class, do a 2-hour or so presentation about some of the concepts, past jobs and how they were successful and what was not successful. So I appreciate that he kind of keeps me involved with the team a little bit.
It's very good. He should, and as they should. Awesome. So I'm going to roll through the photos, everybody. They're not in chronological order because it's hard to do that. I'm just going to do them. I'm going to roll through them. Pete, Jack, you guys talk about them, and I'll sit, and if I hear anything interesting that I can comment on, I'll do so. So
that's something I couldn't do right there.
That's what Pete couldn't do, everybody.
You know what Clint Eastwood said, right? Dirty Harry, man's got to know his limitations. I knew mine.
That's right. And I got to tell you, people climb over your bridge to get up there, climb over your back to get up that cable up there to make a rescue. You know, because a successful rescue was always resulting in a nice medal, commendation. So people wanted to do that, and it was just the thrill of it to see. Oh my God, what a beautiful panoramic view up there! And that's when I had black hair, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way. So that was a great time. Yeah. World Trade Center. So this was this building. I think this was World Trade Center number 7, maybe. They deemed it the House of God because you can't really see too well in the background, but all the girders, when they collapsed, they formed crosses all throughout. Long crosses, small crosses. And somebody deemed it the House of God because of all the crosses. Ironic, yeah.
Wow.
So Jack, I could bury the audience in photos like those that we've seen, which are awesome. I love to watch them. I love to look at them. I've scrolled through them, both from your website, which let me pull that up right now, so we can do that. Look at that, everybody. JackCambria.com.
Very simple. Very simple.
So if you're listening and watching, it's JackCambria.com. Check him out on his website. If there's any other agencies out there that want to consult with Jack, you can reach out to him. You can check out his gallery. You can check out his video and photo galleries. There's just so much to do. We could do all of that. I'll keep that going for a second. But you took all of these experiences, ESU, patrol, hostage negotiation team, and then you transitioned. And that's where I'm going to get to next. So now you're a consultant on TV.
Yeah. So that's Deborah Messing. So a lot of viewers might know her from a TV show she used to do years ago, Will and Grace.
Yeah.
But this show, it lasted, I think, maybe 2 seasons. It was called The Mysteries of Laura, where she had this. She played a New York City detective, and she had these powers, not powers so much, but she had this instant recall of incidents from years ago, and she would solve a lot of crimes that way, based on a real life incident, actually, or a real life detective from someplace. I forget where it was. But here I'm showing you how to, hold a firearm, how to shoot a firearm. Someone snapped that picture at the time. So I did that. I did a few shows, actually. I think you're going to be mentioning some others as well.
Oh yeah. We're gonna do it. So all right, what's the next one I got? So this is like the most famous photo that's been circulated about Jack everywhere. Nothing really comment other than you look really handsome. You got a nice rack, metal rack.
So this was a Daily News picture from the Daily News. They wanted a photo for their story, and it was a story about. I was involved with a hostage situation at a liquor store on Avenue N and East 54th Street or something like that. 2 individuals went into a liquor store. In summertime, they were in hoodies. The store owner across the street saw them going in. She suspected that it would probably be a robbery. Sure enough, she calls 911. I think there's a robbery going on across the street in the liquor store. There's a radio car in close proximity. They respond to it. And when these 2 individuals go into the store, sure enough, that's what it was. They fire around into the ceiling, and everybody was kind of taken hostage at that point. There was the store clerk, and there was 3 customers inside. There was even a pit bull named Daisy the Pit Bull. And when the shot was fired, Daisy the Pit Bull retreats into the basement. We didn't see Daisy for the rest of the episode. So much for the reputation of pit bulls, right? It's supposed to be there as a guard dog, but so much for that, right? So the problem with that job is, hey, Pete, what do they sell in liquor stores?
Booze.
There you go. And if you had to guess, your mortgage on your house, what were they doing?
They were robbing a liquor store.
Drinking. They were drinking because they were stuck inside there, right? So, and I got to tell you, they were drinking the good stuff. Louis,
they'd be fools to not, right?
Cognac, yeah. All right. So, thank you, man. So Louis the 14th cognac, and they broke the 13th. I don't really know too much about the cognac, but they broke the glass case. That's $5,000 a bottle. That beautiful bottle, if anybody knows it, right?
Yes.
And that's what they were drinking. So now we had to work through the effects of the alcohol. And so we did. It was a joint effort. I was negotiating a little bit. We had a couple of the negotiators negotiating. And there was a detective, Mike Hubert, who wasn't a negotiator at the time, but he had interactions with one of the liquor store robbers. So he was able to negotiate with him a little bit, and he was able to get the first guy out. And then after we got the first guy out, before he came out, I said to the ESU personnel in front of the door, and I worked with them, they were all my friends. One lieutenant named Mike. I said, "Hey, Mike, do me a favor." He said he's going to come out. When he comes out, if you can, try to take him into custody softly, gently. In other words, don't throw him on the ground, put handcuffs on him, and drag him off while his nose is scraping against the cement, right? But Mike says to me very funny, he says, "Yeah, Jack, if we can. If you can. Right?" So anyway, that's how it goes. They take him into custody gently. But there was a method to the madness on that one because the other guy was watching, right? So now I'm going to use that as a negotiation with him. Look how we treated your friend, right? Dignity and respect, right? So finally, and he was the guy with the gun. So finally, after about another hour or so, we were able to convince him to put the gun down, leave the gun inside the store, and come right out. And so we did. So, but before that, we were in the truck. We had a little knock. Knock is the negotiation operations center. So I'm in there with Chief Fox, who was the borough commander, so a 2-star chief, assistant chief. And also in the truck was the CEO of ESU, a 1-star chief, who was no longer with us, Chief Malloy. And he was a great guy, great man. And we're kicking it around, and Chief Fox says, "Jack, what do you think? You have any ideas? How can we get this guy out, the second guy out?" I said, "Well, Chief, it's never been done before. This, to my knowledge, in New York City, but maybe use his partner, the guy we got out, as a TPI, third-party intermediary. to talk to him on our behalf. We'd coach him what to say. So we kicked it around a little bit. Well, it's never been done before. No, it's never been done before, but they'll never say never in hostage negotiation work. So he goes, all right, let's give it a try. So I sent one of my detective sergeants over, negotiator, to go talk to him. These people have to be vetted very carefully before we can use them as TPIs. And he's back in 5 minutes. He goes, no, we can't use him. He's bombed. He's slurring his speech. So we wound up not using him. But you think out of the box. So finally, we were able to convince him to finally come out and stop drinking, come on out, and that's how it ended up. So they did a story on that based on the afternoon bank robbery when they made the movie out of it with Al Pacino. So that's where that picture came from.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to bring up another one.
So I won't use his real name, but I'll call him John, right?
John, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, we'll call him John. So John, interesting story. He was a Navy veteran. In fact, the shirt he's wearing is his old naval work shirt. The name was stenciled over his pocket there. And he was on his on the fire escape of his building. I think it was like 4 stories above the ground. And he was diagnosed as being schizophrenic. And when I get up to the window to talk to him, his kitchen window, before I did that, I sought out his mom, who called the police because she was going to take him for a doctor's appointment. He barricaded himself in the apartment, told her to go away. So she became concerned for his safety, and she called the police. So when I first met up to her, before I even tried to speak to him, I tried to get some information about her son, John. Can you tell me anything about your son? And she goes, well, he's got mental health problems. The police have been here before, and they've brought him off to the hospital, but he's never gone on the fire escape before. Okay, so let me try to help you. Does he have a wife? Well, he had a wife, but they've been divorced for over 10 years, and she hates him. So I can't use her, right? It's a TPI, third-party intermediary. I said, all right, what about children? Most people, get along beautifully with their children, right? Have a bonding with their children. Because, yeah, he has 2 children. They're a little bit older, 25 and 27, I think they were, but they've been estranged for the last 7 years, and they hate him. Can't use that. So finally she came out with it. I said, ma'am, there's got to be something you can tell me. You know him his whole life. Well, he was in the Navy. And he's still wearing that shirt. He was in the Gulf War. That was like 1990, I think it was. And this was like 2014, right? So he's got this shirt all these years later, and he's still wearing it. So it had some significance in his life.
Yes.
In fact, she says he even got a medal, out of that, from the Navy. So that's it. That's what I'm going to start with, my speaking points. So I went up to his window, his kitchen window, opened the window, and there he is on the fire escape. And I introduced myself. And when I do that, he looks at me and he starts screaming incoherently up at the sky. So I had to wait till that kind of wound down a little bit. And then finally I reapproached it. And I said, Noel, I called him by his first name. I said, listen, I understand that you were in the Navy and you even got a medal during the Gulf War. And I even see that you're wearing your old naval work shirt. And I want to thank you for all you did for this country, for your service. And slowly that tone of voice and that kind of, dialogue along with him finally got him to turn around to look at me in the eyes. And I said, listen, Noel, John, it looks like you can use a hug right about now. Why don't you come out and let me give you a hug? And he looked at me with great skepticism, and he said, and finally he nodded his head, yeah, and he put his hand out, took mine, and I escorted him inside to the kitchen, through the window. So Tommy, what was the first thing I did when he came in?
Give him a hug.
That was number 2. The first thing I did was close the window in case he changed his mind, right?
Yeah, right, of course. Sorry.
And try to jump out again. So always be thinking tactics, right? Always be thinking tactics first.
Yeah.
So we got to the hospital. And,
so before we go into that, so we had a previous guest, rest his soul, Deputy Chief Joe Herbert. His very first homicide was Seda, the
Zodiac, yeah,
our copycat Zodiac killer. Do you have knowledge? I don't know. We hadn't talked, so I'm going to ask. I don't know. What's your involvement in that?
Oh, I knew Joe Herbert very well over the years. I was always a big fan of his. First of all, he was a gentleman and always had kind words to talk to you about. Always stop it and take the time to talk to you. And of course, everybody knew that story. That as he's trying to investigate this homicide, he was a hostage negotiator as well.
Right.
And,
it was his first hostage. It was his first HNT gig, which is wild.
That's right. Yeah. So he was
go
already,
big or go home. Like, could you go
so he was already trained as a negotiator, and as he's negotiating with this guy who's barricaded, he starts seeing, he recognizing these little symbols that he was making, and I said, I've been investigating this guy. This guy's got to be the Zodiac, killer. And sure enough, he was able to convince him to come out, and there was a very famous arrest, and especially in the hostage annals, so very famous. Years earlier, when I was in the emergency service, he had a brother, John Herbert, detective out of the Brooklyn North Homicide Squad, and John was a piece of cake as well, a gem. And I got involved with John with there was remember the TV show America's Most Wanted with John Walsh? Of course. So they profiled this case that it was a family of 5 who killed in Maryland, Prince George's County, Maryland. And when they add this episode about these 5 people being killed, and they show the people who they believe were wanted for them, some woman calls up the show and says, "I just saw one of these guys in Brooklyn, Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn." Confines, I think it was the 8-1 precinct. So the detectives get involved. The Brooklyn North Homicide Squad gets involved, John Herbert being one of them, along with his sergeant. And they get a warrant to search this house where this lady just saw this one guy, right? She was just at her girlfriend's house, and this guy was in the house. So we go and we execute the warrant, and I'm doing like follow-up. So the entry team goes in, and I'm doing follow-up, the handcuff guy, whatever was needed. And during that interim, I happen to pick up one of the box springs, and there's the gun that killed these 5 people in Maryland. So I announce to the team, I have a gun, and I put it in my in my belt there, and we continue to search. And sure enough, there's this guy in the basement. Right? So he's taken into custody, and I wound up getting like 3 different trips now, subpoenas to go to Maryland court to testify that I found this gun, just a chain of of custody, chain of evidence, So the first time we go, I get up, I speak, like maybe just 2 minutes. Did you find this gun? Yes. How do you know it's the gun you did? I scratched my initials in it. I recorded the serial number and so on. And I was pretty much done. They don't use John. Then we go a second time, and we don't get used at all. And we go a third time, and we're not used at all. So John comes out and says, you go to court, they don't use you. You get pissed off a little bit, but at least you're still in Brooklyn. Here we travel all the way to Maryland, and we can't even testify, So, so I was friends with both the Herbert brothers. Yeah,
that's really funny. All right, so we're going to transition. I think. What is this picture? You're still in a job, but you're participating in a little ceremony.
That's not Mulberry Street, that's for sure.
That's not. So this is a town called the Monte di Progida. This is in the Provincia di Napoli, so in the province of Naples. So what happened here was during the World Trade Center. So as I mentioned, I was there from September 11th, and I didn't leave there till December. So about early October, my dear friend Vincenzo, he calls me up. He lives in Brooklyn, but he has a house also in this town called Monte di Progida. Very small town. I think there's about 3,000 people that inhabit the town. So he calls me up. I just got home from we were doing 12-hour tours at the site at the World Trade Center. I was doing 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening. I just got home about 7 o'clock. Just took my shower, right, with my uniform in the washing machine, and I'm just getting ready pretty soon to go to sleep because I have to be up very early, like 4 o'clock in the morning to get dressed and go back to work. Vincenzo calls me up about 7 o'clock at night. Goes, "Hey Jack, the mayor syndical from my town is in my house right now, and he wants to meet you." So, "Oh, Vincenzo, it's very nice. Thank you very much. Please thank him. I just got home. I just ate. I gotta get ready. I have to get to bed soon." "Jack, it's the mayor. He wants to meet you." So what's the guy to do, right? Okay, Vincenzo. Vincenzo lived about maybe 10 blocks from my house. So I get dressed and I go, "I'll come over just for a little while. If you have a glass of, he made the homemade wine, the super sada, right?" So I go, have a glass of wine, have a super sada, right? And then he comes out with it and he had like 4 or 5 people with him, the mayor. So he says, "Jack, the mayor, he'd like to go see the site right now, the World Trade Center site. So, Vincenzo, I just got back a little while ago. I have to go back in the morning. Jack, it's the mayor. Again, what's the guy to do, right? Okay, let's go. So I take them all down, 2 cars. I take them down. I bring them into the family viewing center, which was, kind of deserted at nighttime. I bring them there. At that point, the jet fuel was still very much burning underground, right? The fires in the distance, right? The smoke, a lot of smoke was still there. But they got to sort of see the debris. In the family viewing center, they had the graphics of all the flags of all the nations that were affected by this tragedy here. And one of them was, in fact, 2 weeks earlier, President Bush he signed by the American flag, right, in a Sharpie. So I said to the mayor, I said, "Would you want to sign for the people of Italy by the Italian flag?" He goes, "Can I?" "Yeah, please do. It'd be an honor." So he does that. So as we're leaving, the mayor says to me, "Jack, I hear you're coming to Italy to Monte de Praga in August. That's the Feast of the Assunta, August 15th, very famous, very very religious holiday throughout all of Italy." I said, "Yeah, that's the plan right now. If you come," he says, "you're going to march with me at the front of the town, and the whole town goes through this procession, right? They visit 4 different churches. They carry the Madonna. That's what you saw in the picture." But okay, that'd be a big honor. Thank you. With the Carabinieri. Right? So I go. Before I go, Vincenzo calls me up and says, "Jack, the mayor would like for you to wear your uniform." I said, "Oh, Vincenzo, it's a wool uniform. It's very hot in Italy. The mayor wants you to wear the uniform." Okay. So I wear the uniform. I bring it. I wear it. And that's what that picture was. Here I am marching in the procession. And that's when they snapped that picture of me. So that's what that's about.
Okay. So I think awesome, great stories. And I think the comment was, I pulled it up on the screen, Fox K5P. So just so everyone knows, like YouTube changed everyone's handles to like these goofball things. And some people have changed them. Like Amazing Ant changed hers. I changed mine. But like they gave you these Fox.-K5P. So you can go into your settings and change your handles on YouTube if you want to. But regardless, I pulled it up before. I love these history stories. And that's really what we're all about here, Jack, on the 10-4 Tavern. The people who need to tell the stories that need to be told by the people who need to tell them. So
thank you, Fox K5P. Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to go into Jack's post-consulting career, because there's some fun in that, especially in Italy. And we talked about that earlier with the food and wine and all that, because I'm going to pounce all over that. Jack, I am dragging you with me to Italy at some point.
Oh my God.
So, let me ask you a question, Jack.
Yes, sir.
Anybody in your family history former Carabinieri?
No, they're not.
Because if you did, I don't know if you know this, if you did, they would credential you as an honorary Carabinieri, give you the credentials, the ID card.
Oh, really?
You had anybody in your lineage that was former Carabinieri?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's a nice little ceremony. I don't have that. I know someone who does. It's a nice little ceremony.
So I actually have a Carabinieri shield, a badge. Well, they don't really wear them on their uniform, but they do keep them in their pockets. So I have a friend down out in the actually that area, the Naples area, where we became kind of close, and he gave me one of those actual shields without a number on it, though. Big honor to have that.
Yep. So we're going to do a last active photo and let Jack talk about it, and then we're going to shift into his post-law enforcement career.
Oh, so I got in trouble with this photo, as you can probably see why. But this was at the time 45.
Is that an inappropriate touch? Like
that's what I was accused of by my ex-wife.
That's hilarious.
She says, "Where's your hand?" I said, "No, don't even go there. We'll grab whatever we can grab, get her onto the roadway, right?" But she was actually a 45-year-old Polish woman at the time who just found out that her husband was looking to leave her for a young woman.
So funny.
She went into a tailspin, emotionally speaking, and she drives her car to the midspan of the Kosciuszko Bridge. That's the old Kosciuszko Bridge along the BQE that leads the borough of Brooklyn to the borough of Queens. stops it, climbs over the the guardrail there, and there she is, looking to jump 150 feet below. So during that time, I sent my negotiators into her car because we didn't know who she was. She wasn't talking to us. And finally, they go into a car and they go into the glove compartment. And while they're doing that, the cell phone she left on the front seat starts to ring. So detectives, being detectives, they answer the phone, and it winds up being her husband. So they alert the detectives what's going on. He's horrified by what he's hearing. They tell him, "Look, she's on the on the bridge." And so he says, "I'm coming. I'm about 30 minutes away. I'm on my way." I said, "Well, sir, before you come, give us some information." So they alerted him that they are having marital difficulties, right? Kind of what happened, and that they have 2 young children, a 12-year-old daughter, and they gave the names, and a 14-year-old son. So they come back and they feed me this information. And while they're doing that, I say to her, I'll call her Susan. That's not her real name. I said, "Susan, I understand that you're having some marital difficulties. And I'm sorry to hear that." And she starts kind of a little confused. How would I know that? And I also understand that you have 2 young children. And then she talks to me for the first time. She goes, how do you know that? All that? I said, "Well, your husband just told us that. The phone that you left on your front seat of your car, while I had my detectives in your car, we were trying to find out who you are. Phone rang. Actually, they spoke to him on your phone." And she said, "Well, that's bullshit. You could not talk to him on my phone. There's a passcode. You need a passcode to get to my phone. You're lying to me." So no, Susan, he called while they were in the car. The phone rang and they answered. So that's when they got to talk to your husband. He's very concerned about what he just heard, what's going on with you, and he's on his way here. And then she said, softer, "He's on his way here?" I said, "Yes, he is." I said, "And he also told us that you have 2 young children." Make up some names. Melissa, 12 years old. And your son, Joseph, 14 years old. Now, Melissa, 12 years old. Very soon, if she hasn't done so already, she's going to be entering into puberty. That's a very scary time for a young girl. I remember when my daughter was going through that time, well, the drama that was going on with that, right? I said, that's a scary time for a young girl. That's something only her mother should be there to support her with, to teach her about. It's true, anyone can do that, but something only a mother should do. And what about your son, Joseph, 14 years old? If you do this, what you say you want to do, jump into the water, is he going to bear that burden for the rest of his life? Maybe it was his fault in some way. Maybe you yelled at him last week for not doing his homework. Is he going to bear that burden? So finally, she looked up and then convinced her. And I was with 2 other detectives as well, one from the Emergency Service, one from the precinct. And the 3 of us were able to convince her to come to the side there, that lower portion of the girder, and then that's when we escorted her over. And that's the picture that made it into the Daily News, and that's the picture my wife at the time saw. And she did not say, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. You saved a life. Oh my gosh." What's the hand?
The right hand.
Don't even go there. Don't even go there.
All right. So, Jack, I thought that was it, but I did find one more that I saved. So let's do one more before we get into post-career. 2 pictures. 2 pictures. One, on the fence, on the ledge, and then the recovery.
Yeah. So I'll call this gentleman, let's say Larry. Right? So Larry, interesting story about Larry. He was a 19-year-old young man at the time, a big kid, 19 years old though. And when I first got up on today, that's the by the way, that's the rooftop of the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum on 42nd Street in Times Square, between 7th and 8th Avenue. That's where that is. He was able to bypass security and get to the rooftop of the theater there, of the museum, and that's where he winds up over the edge. When I first got up on the rooftop, I used something called an empathetic stem. An empathetic stem is a short, concise statement, but it demonstrates some kind of understanding, empathy, right? Someone understands. And I say to him, this is even before I introduced myself. Well, I'm sorry, I introduced myself first. I said, "Hello, my name is Jack. I'm with the police department." And then I said to him, the empathetic stem, looks like you might have had better days, huh? And he looks back at me and he says, you're damn right I have. So I said, yeah, I can see that. I said, I'd like to talk to you. And he says to me, people have been talking to me for my entire life. I'm tired of people talking to me. I don't want anyone to talk to me anymore. So he just told me no. So in hostage negotiation work, we learned that when someone tells you no, it's an access to yes, meaning that it gives us a chance to reevaluate our strategy. Because he told me no. So I have to adjust and reevaluate my strategy to get him to say yes. So when he told me he doesn't want no one to talk to him anymore, I took a second to think about it. And I said, okay, in that case, I'd like to listen to you. And he didn't know what to do with that. Probably no one in his entire life ever said that to him. I want to listen to you. Everybody's always talking at him. So, and then I said, can I ask you your name? And then he said, I'm not telling you shit. So he just told me no a second time. So again, I had to adjust and reevaluate my strategy. And I said to him, okay, in that case, I'll just call you sir. And I did eventually find out his name. Right? Again, we'll call him Larry. So Larry's backstory was, because I asked him the question, I said, Larry, you're 19 years old. Where are your parents? Because by my way of thinking about it, I had a son that was older than him at the time, right? So I mean, he's still kind of a kid in my mind, right? Because I haven't seen them in over 10 years. My father left the house, the apartment 10 years ago. He never came back. I don't know if he was killed, if he just abandoned the family. Never saw him again. My mother became a drug addict, heroin. In order to support her habit, she had to turn to prostitution, turn tricks. And then after she'd buy enough money, she'd be able to support her habit, buy the drugs. Then whatever money was left, she'd buy food for her and the kid. Finally, child services got involved. They removed him from the home, and he went from one foster home to another. And when he was old enough, he was able to save up enough money where he got a bus ticket to come to New York City. He was from the Chicago area. When he gets off the bus, he starts roaming the streets of Midtown Manhattan, and he quickly realizes I have very limited funds, money, no food, no shelter. So he makes his way over to Covenant House. I think it was up on 10th Avenue. Covenant House, for those who might not know, is a homeless shelter for 21-year-olds and under, I think 16 to 21. It's mostly designed for runaways that come to New York City. They'll take you in. It's a Catholic-run facility, so they'll take you in. It doesn't cost you anything. No questions asked. They'll give you a bunk, but you have to maintain the rules of the house, which is to help out with the household chores, cleaning the bathroom, cleaning the dishes, working in the kitchen, those kind of things, right? But Larry wasn't doing that. Instead, he was hanging out in his bunk bed all day, playing video games on his cell phone. So finally, the Monsignor, who was the director, he invites him to leave. Sorry, Larry, gave you numerous warnings. You're not following the house rules. You have to leave. So he gathered up his few belongings in his backpack, and he starts walking the streets of Midtown Manhattan. When he goes by the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, he saw that there was lax security. He's able to enter into the building, goes up the stairs to the rooftop, and this is where he winds up. So while I'm negotiating with them, one of my negotiators, Chris Breslin, he's going through his backpack, and he finds a spiral-bound notebook with all his innermost writings in it. And at this point, Larry just told me, because I asked him the question, I said, Larry, can I ask you, what is so bad in your life that it requires a death sentence by you? And he says, I have no purpose in life anymore. So I might as well just check out. So about that time, that's when Chris gives me his notebook. And he says, just read this one paragraph. So I read it, and it says something to the effect that we must serve as a beacon of light for the underprivileged children of the world to show them the right path. Words to that effect. So I read it to Larry. I said, Larry, did you write this? And I read it to him. He goes, where'd you get that? I said, well, we got it in your backpack. We're trying to find out some more information about you. Did you write that? He said, I wrote that. Well, you just told me that you don't have any purpose in your life. And this tells me very differently that you do. And I can help you with that. There's no shortage of agencies that help underprivileged children in New York City, certainly. So I can put you in touch with some of them. Maybe you can start as a volunteer, then get an internship, and then maybe get a paid position as a counselor. I can help you with that. So at that point, he starts pondering that. I said, this is what we're going to do, Larry. When you're ready, I took out my business card from my wallet, just my business information, my office phone number, my office email address. I says, I'm going to give you my card when you come off that ledge. We're going to take you over to Bellevue. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit. I don't think you're going to be there very long as well. Maybe they'll give you some medication. And then when you get out, I want you to call me. And I'm going to help you. So based on that, he decided, you see at the lower picture on the right of the screen, he decides to give life a second chance. Now you can see from that girder, there's no way I can get to him. I was on a harness, by the way, or can emergency service get to him before he would have jumped. So I think the best negotiators, and I'm not including myself in this definition, but the very best negotiators are those that can get people to do what you need them to do while allowing them to believe that it's their idea. Getting people to do what you need them to do while allowing them to believe that it's their idea. So just to finish the story, we take him off to Bellevue. About 3 days later, I'm in my office, the phone rings, and it's Larry. He goes, yeah, it's Larry. You told me to call you. Oh, my gosh, yeah, Larry. Thank you for calling me. What happened? Well, they talked to me a little bit. They gave me some medication. They told me to come back in 3 weeks. I said, okay, it's a good thing. So, Larry, how can I try to help you now? Because, well, I have no place to go. I said, okay, let's start with that. I said, I know the Monsignor over at Covenant House. I can call him and ask him if he'll take you back, but I know what he's going to say. You have to follow those rules. Are you willing to do that? So yeah, I'll follow the rules. Okay, I'll call you right back then. So I called the Monsignor. So the Monsignor, he knew what was going on. Those pictures you were just showing, they were in the newspapers. And I said, Monsignor, he's got nowhere to go. Can you take him back? And there was silence. And I said, before you even try to answer, he already promised that he'll follow the house rules. So then he says, all right, Jack, if he promises to follow the rules, then tell him I'm waiting for him. Send him back. Thank you very much. So I called back Larry and said, okay, Larry, he's waiting for you. But just remember your promise, because otherwise we're going to be in the same position again. So I never heard back from Larry. I did call the Monsignor the following day. I was curious just if he even showed up. He goes, yeah, Jack, he showed up. And right now he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's in the bathrooms, cleaning the bathrooms. I'll let you know if anything changes. And I never heard back about Larry. So hopefully he goes on to follow his quest to help those underprivileged children of the world.
Yeah, who knows? VR forever. This man saves lives. Fox, K5P. Jack, you're amazing. So, Jack, you are on the front. You're the tip of the spear of the meaningful work of law enforcement, not just in the NYPD, but all across the country. But
I had a great job, Tom and Pete. I even got paid for it too. Oh my gosh!
I know they paid us. How many times have Pete and I have talked? Pete and I talk 20 times a week. We talk about that. We would have all done this for free if we had a trust fund. So, this is the point in the show that whoever's listening, whoever gives a shit, like whatever you think about cops, they can be compassionate at the same time of administering force to apprehend and take bad people off the street to do their job, because good people deserve to live peaceably. Good, hardworking people should not be infringed on by predators. And then there's the emotional and mentally ill people, like what you were dealing with this caper, that he was raised by parents who were ill prepared to raise a child, and he was troubled and he's going through this thing, but he saw a path and you saved him. And it was really funny. My son graduated from the DC Metro Police Academy, and his Sergeant Gaynor, his uncle was Terry Gaynor, who was a deputy chief in the Chicago Police Department, was a superintendent of the Illinois State Police, and he became the sergeant at arms of the Senate. And Sergeant Gaynor, a descendant of Terry Gaynor, told my son, and at the graduation, which I never forget, and I wish someone told me that 25, 30 years earlier, you can't save the world. Just save the person in front of you in that moment at that time.
Thank you. So that picture you just showed with Larry, that was about a 3-hour incident. That went on for about 3 hours. And a couple of times I would look over the ledge there, and I would see all the way from the east side to the FDR Drive to the West Side Highway or West Street. Traffic was backed up like you would not believe, because they had 42nd Street closed now between 7th and 8th Avenue. So all the traffic had to be diverted. So there are a lot of people that would love to have seen Larry jump, right? But that's not what we do. So we are oftentimes, as police officers, asked to respect those that others might not care to respect. But that's not our choice to make. We are not God. So we will try our very best to get these people out of this immediate danger and get them the help that they need, hopefully. And you mentioned at the beginning of the program, Pete, about there is help available out there to those who seek it out. So it is okay not to be okay.
Yeah. But touching on what both you gentlemen are saying, cops are compassionate. And I'll tell you, I think I've arrested about 1,200 people in my career. And I swear on my kids that probably 1,150 of them, those arrest incidents ended in a handshake. You know what I mean? And hey, man, thanks for treating me with respect. I remember when my daughter was being baptized, a guy had locked up, I didn't even recognize. Big guy comes in and he goes, "Yo, man, you locked me up." And I'm just thinking oh, okay. I usually didn't treat people disrespectfully. The next word out of his mouth was, "Can I buy you a beer?" And of course, I was like, "No, how about I buy you one?" Yeah, I think people don't realize that they think that cops want to be goons and cops don't know how to treat people.
They're not goons.
I have found 99.9% of the cops I work with was the exact opposite. And look, Tommy, I got another saying that you've heard 1,000 times. Nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. Period.
That's right.
Yep. So listen, I'm going to tease up Jack because it is the tavern, so I got to do a bio break. But I'm going to tease up Jack. You might not know. Pete, tell Jack in the audience how many wrongful convictions you helped overturn. So we'll leave it at that. And I'll be right back. 8
for murder. 1 for wasn't a conviction though, it was an indictment for a home invasion robbery. And in each of them, I shouldn't say each. One of them, they relied on an informant who tried to frame 5 people, including a woman. The most notable was a guy named Eric Glisson for murdering a FedEx executive and a cab driver in the Soundview projects. And we arrested some other folks that talked about a murder they committed. It matched identically. And the Bronx District Attorney's Office, because they had already taken that case to trial, didn't believe us. So we had a fight with the DA's office to get Eric Glisson and Kathy Watkins and the other people out. And then there were 2 other guys in the case I worked where a guy came in and proffered to a bunch of murders he did. And we went and pulled the files. And lo and behold, 2 of the 6 murders people were sitting in jail for. So again, I shouldn't say. In one of those cases, the DA's office fought us tooth and nail. The other case was, the other case, we got the guy out in 24 hours. The nice thing is they were about to try that guy for another murder, the one who was still in jail. And we knew he didn't do that one either. And we actually wound up to Shaw and Gunk Correctional Facility in upstate New York and got a confession out of the actual shooter and arrested him on the spot, which was tricky, arresting a guy in a state prison by basically telling him, "Hey, you're under arrest," and then calling the federal prosecutor saying, "Hey, we're locking this guy up," to then call the DA's office saying, "Hey, you can't prosecute him because we just collared the actual shooter." And then the final one was a guy named Edward Gary. This one's kind of a sad story. Edward Gary was arrested for murdering a retired detective in the Bronx named Oswald Potter. Picked out by 2 witnesses, right? A woman that worked behind the counter and a guy working on a soda truck. Many years later, some detectives assigned to the 47th precinct arrested some guys on federal charges under trigger lock, which I was gone by that time. And these guys come in and proffered to a murder that they were involved in during a grocery store robbery. And they put together that it was the case which Edward Gary was arrested for. They showed them a picture of Edward Gary. All 3 of them say, "We never saw this guy before in their lives." We identified who the actual shooter was. And then the district attorney's office not only fought us in 3 separate hearings from getting Edward Gary out. Once we got him out, they took him to trial again. I wound up testifying in that case as a defense witness because the guy who was sitting in jail, who we positively identified as the shooter, actually still had the bullet in his hand and was sitting in prison in Minnesota. But the DA's office took him to trial again after losing 3 hearings. And the jury sat down, picked a 4-person and acquitted Edward Gary in less than 30 minutes. Unfortunately, Edward Gary sued the city, won $3 million, and 30 days later died of sepsis. So the poor guy, at least he died on the right side of the prison wall, but sat in jail for 25 years for a murder he didn't do.
Wow.
Miss ID, straight up miss ID. Anyway.
Well,
Yep.
sorry,
So, hey,
around.
I'm sorry, Jack, go, please.
No, I just say he's thrilled that you came around to try to get that done for him. Yeah.
It's the truth. I mean, our job is to follow the evidence, right? Follow the truth. And look,
Follow the evidence.
Nobody did anything wrong except for that one case with the 5 people because he had a dirty CI. But in all those other cases, it was straight up misidentifications. The sad part is in each one of those case files, though, there was the path to the actual shooter, and cops just got tunnel vision or relied too heavily on the CI or on the witness and never followed up on those other leads where they could have actually found the actual shooter if they did. I will throw that in there. But
yeah, so I think what's really interesting about that conversation, Pete, and we have a future guest coming on. In a couple of weeks, we have an assistant district attorney, Anna-Siga Nicolosi, who prosecuted at least 35 murder cases in Brooklyn. And she's also got one of the most famous true crime podcasts called Anatomy of a Murder. And then she's now working on season 2 of a Law and Order, which is the first season was organized crime related, like 70s and 80s organized crime, which is wild. And I lived in it, Jack. I don't know how much you infiltrated it as a young kid growing up in Bensonhurst, but I grew up in the automotive industry. So I got to talk to you about this. You'll find it really fascinating. And then, so the prosecution part will be a fascinating conversation, folks. So look forward to Anna-Siga Nicolosi in a couple of weeks. Yes. Not only her true crime podcast, but the prosecution, their perspective of how to bring a homicide case to the case. I want to address Fox K5. Liberals have destroyed New York, NYPD. I'm a liberal, by the way. I am a social liberal all day. I didn't know I was, but like I think about my parents and I think about how I care about people and I think about how they were raised and why they might do what they do. And I was never, ever, ever angry at the bad guy, even though I know they were evil and they had evil in their soul for whatever the reason, but I was never mad at them. And so I'm a social liberal, conservative, but I'm right of Genghis Khan on predators and crime. You know what I mean? Like, if you are attacking our vulnerable, our old people, our kids, you know, the exploitation of children and human trafficking, I have no tolerance for that. And I know Pete and I have talked about this. But like, so it's not liberals. I think it's the progressive.
Yes.
Without getting too political. So my family, I'm a Kennedy Democrat. I'm raised by Kennedy Democrats, I should say.
Well, hey, Tommy, in my county, we had in the last year, we've had 3 people released by the county attorney, Toscano, who were in jail for murder, who within a week of being released have murdered somebody else, including one recent one at a bus stop where some poor woman was slaughtered in a bus shelter. So it's not just New York City. It's happening in other parts of the country as well.
It's crazy. All right, so unless you guys have any final thoughts, we're going to pivot to Jack's post-career. Jack, what do you, before I show the pictures, so you retire and you are the HNT guy, you're a negotiator. I got to be honest with you, going back to the photo, like looking at you hugging that stanchion while talking to John, whatever his name is, it doesn't matter because
Larry.
I don't know his real name.
Larry.
Like you can see the compassion that you're trying to work. So now you transition. Do you proactively go after that, or do people solicit you, or is it a combination of both? And then we'll talk about what you're doing afterwards.
So I started teaching outside of the job about a year or so before I actually retired. I was a trainer. Most of my supervisory career as a lieutenant in emergency service, even as a sergeant in emergency service, I'd be responsible for my squad training. But then as a lieutenant, I became a training lieutenant. One of the assignments I had as a lieutenant. So I was always training. And then when I took over the hostage team, I was the primary trainer as well. And I'd bring in other people who would profile different cases that they've got involved with, lessons learned, good and bad. So we can maybe not do that again if it was not a good thing. I like to say because the NYPD has been doing it the longest in the field of hostage negotiations, we probably had gotten it wrong more than anybody else because we've been doing it longer. But by getting it wrong more than anybody else, we now probably get it right more than everybody else because we learn from our past mistakes. At least hopefully we do. So I've been training a lot. So about a year before I retired from the job, I was doing it outside. A company I work for, I do work for, not exclusively, however. So I started doing hostage negotiation training there across the U.S. In fact, last week I was in Alabama, a place called Hoover, Alabama, outside of Birmingham. And a 5-day class was a basic class for new negotiators. I also do an advanced class for senior negotiators. So I do that. I do a couple of other trainings as well. I do a training class called curriculum called Verbal De-Escalation and Crisis Communication. This is more for frontline officers, patrol officers. Oftentimes the younger officers that are out there who are still trying to identify themselves, who they are as police officers, trying to deflate their egos a little bit. Oftentimes police work makes us believe that we are more than we are sometimes. So inflated ego. So I teach ego deflation, to deflate your ego before you can look to, be effective in your negotiation strategy. So I do that. So I've been training for a long time, many, many years, and I still do that through today, keep my fingers in it. I was saying that to Pete before we came on, at one point I was doing 35 5-day classes a year, which is a lot. To give you an idea, that's in Italy, by the way. But to give you an idea how much training I do and how much traveling I do, I have well over 2 million Sky Miles with Delta Airlines, right? So I have a lot of Sky Miles.
Delta, I'm a Delta guy.
There you go. All right. So at one point I'll take a nice vacation to Italy, first class. I've done it before, actually. I've used a lot of my miles, so I had a lot more than that. But we go to Delta One and all the way, right? So that extended now to the photo you're showing now. I do a lot of training in Italy as well, and those are mostly for corporate negotiators, corporate managers, about the principles of speaking strategies, communication strategies. And I mentioned earlier the principles are the same, gaining rapport, establishing trust, and closing the deal. And of course, I exploit it a little bit. I tell some police stories and how this stuff kind of plays into human dynamics and all that. So they keep inviting me back. So I guess it's okay for them, And also, besides Italy, I've been to Israel 9 times teaching, these concepts. I've been to Switzerland, to Greece, Cuba, which is the Army base, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I did some training there, a 5-day course, a basic class for the American Joint Task Force. I was a little concerned about going into that environment, the military environment, with this concept of hostage negotiations. Usually you don't hear those words in the same sentence when you're talking about the military. So military and hostage negotiations, we don't negotiate. We just drop napalm, right? But I got to tell you, they embraced the training, the American Joint Task Force, to the point one of the ensigns in Cuba at Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, said to us on a break that about 5 years earlier, when we did the training, his brother was on the other side of that door who had mental health issues, had a gun, ready to kill himself. And the team that arrived, they were not very well trained. And to a point, they were joking with him, not taking what he was saying very seriously, to the point that they heard the gunshot go off. And he felt if the team was better trained, a more professional team, and he decided the NYPD, perhaps, just perhaps, his brother might still be with us today. So that was a big compliment to us.
So, Jack, talk to me about, because I was intrigued by this, researching, how much of the corporate, like what did they want to extract from your knowledge and your skills that we did for your hostage negotiation, the suicides, the jumpers, all that stuff. How does that translate? And
well, I think a lot of people are somewhat, and I say this without ego, but the NYPD is kind of the big dog out there. Of course, the largest police agency in the whole U.S. And most of your viewers might be surprised to hear when I was doing this, we're averaging about 45 assignments per month. So to give some context to that number, the average team around the country, because I teach around the country, so I know the numbers, they average between about 8 and 12 per year. And we were doing 45 per month. So they were hostage situations, which were mostly, domestic in nature. One family member would take another one member, as a hostage or hostages. Oftentimes there would be drug or alcohol involved. The second category of response was the barricade situations, and there's two categories of barricades. When people were by themselves in their apartment or their homes, mostly, and they have a weapon. So the first category was the barricaded perpetrators who did not want to be arrested when the detectives knocked on the door. We have an arrest warrant for you. I'm not coming out. I'm not going back to jail. I'll shoot it out with the cops before I come out. So enter the hostage negotiator. But we're going to talk to you. The second category of barricaded situations are those of the emotionally disturbed or the mentally ill, those EDPs we speak about, who are no longer responsible for themselves. So now we, the police, must become responsible for them. And we're going to talk to them, get them out of that situation. And then the third category of response, which Pete spoke about earlier, are the suicidal individuals who are now looking to, do away with themselves, their lives, due to adverse life situations or conditions. And we are going to go talk to them. Hopefully rearrange their thinking process from what they want it to be to what we want it to be. The one thing that on suicidal jumpers, either from the girder of a bridge or on top of a high-rise building in Manhattan, the one thing that they have in common that it automatically, when we respond to these situations, it automatically tells us two things. If they're still standing, it automatically tells us two things. The first thing it tells us that there's a part of them that wants to die today. They're standing on the girder of a bridge or the top of a rooftop. And then the second thing it tells us at the very same time, there's a part of them that wants to live today. They're standing on the girder of a bridge or the top of a rooftop. They haven't jumped yet. So there is some ambivalence there, and we have maybe 1% to start building on to try to kind of bring them back a little bit. And all different strategies that we use, we try to find out some information about the person, first of all. We try to develop any kind of hooks. Hooks is something that they respond to in a positive way, that we kind of hook them in a little bit. Children can be hooks. Oftentimes, pets can be hooks. People love their pets, do they not? I had a woman one time I was speaking to on the phone, barricaded in her apartment, threatening suicide for love had gone wrong in her life. And as I'm talking to her on the phone, I hear a dog in the background. And I say, "You got a dog?" I say, "I got a dog." "Oh, what kind of dog you got?" One of those Chinese pedigree dogs, the chows.
Chow.
The dog's name was Biscuit. She fed him a special diet. She got him from a breeder. We had a 15-minute conversation about Biscuit. And then I had to hit her with the punchline. I said, if you do this, if you do kill yourself, then I, as the police, have to take responsibility for your dog, and I have to bring it to the pound. It's our procedures. And if the dog is not adopted within 5 days, they're going to euthanize it.
They're going to euthanize it, right?
So now that interrupted her thinking process from her pain, real as it was, or agony from that love that was lost, to now it shifted to Biscuit. So I said, "Listen, this is what we're going to do. When you're ready, come on out with Biscuit. We'll knock on one of your neighbor's doors. We'll have to just take care of Biscuit for a day or so. You're not going to be in the hospital very long. They're going to have to talk to you. Then when you come out, you get Biscuit back." That we can do. So finally, that was the hook that hooked her in and got her out of that apartment. And that's how we proceeded with her. So you don't know what a hook is going to be. You never know. I had a guy one time on the Williamsburg Bridge on the girder. I was in the emergency service at the time. I was up on the girder. I was the first one up talking to him. I had a harness for him as well, if he allowed me to approach. Vietnam veteran. He was totally intoxicated, drunk. And summertime, and he's wearing a sleeveless shirt. And his two arms were filled with beautiful artwork, tattoos. And I said to him at one point, "That looks like a lot of hours of work on your arms." And he said something like, it was like 9 different sittings at 3 hours apiece, 3 hours of sitting. So you do the math, about 27 hours, right, of tattoo work. I said, it's absolutely beautiful art. I said, can I ask you, what does it signify? He goes, yeah, you can ask. And he told me it represents the 7 deadly sins. The 7 deadly sins from the Bible, right? Goes, yeah. I said, I've heard about it. Don't really know about it. Can you explain it to me? And he was happy to do that. And went through each one. Sloth, greed, all that, wrath. And we had a 20-minute conversation about his tattoos. To the point the alcohol started kind of wearing off a little bit. He started to trust me because I had built rapport with him, and he allowed me to approach and put a harness on him where we escorted him off that cable onto the roadway and got him off to the hospital. So you never know what a hook is going to be until you stumble over it. And once you do, when the people respond in a positive way, then you start to, embrace it and you look to use it.
It's an art. And you were one of the best artists out there, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, Pete. You're kind. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Go ahead, Pete, talk, and I'm going to pull up some Italian and consulting photos from around the world.
So, like I was saying before, Jack, Benny Torado, who was my partner for 4 years, we did the Sex, Money, Murder, Rico together, Trigger Lock. He always spoke the world of you and Hugh, and he loved the team. He was a very happy homicide detective, but I think that he was more proud of the work that he did with you folks on HNT than anywhere else. And usually my role would be I would be his chauffeur to drive him to the scenes when you guys called him, and then I'd wait for him. I wasn't trained, but I got the team, great folks, Scotty Wagner, many others.
Oh my gosh, Scotty! Yeah, in fact, you had one of our negotiators on just a couple of weeks ago, Mike Fanning.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike Fanning. So
I'm a big
I
fan
was
of
trained
Mike
to talk
Fanning.
with him,
So
and
hello,
I'm
you
going
Mike.
to throw two more names out. Go ahead, talk about Mike, and then I got 2 more names I'm going to drop. My boys from the 7 Night Squad. Go ahead.
Yeah, here you go. So
Mike
Mike, I'm a big fan of Mike. Mike was in the building with me, and Mike would help me out oftentimes. I never forget, we had this big exercise. Mike, if you're listening, you'll remember this, no doubt. We had this big exercise planned at Kennedy Airport. We had the Port Authority police involved. The FBI was going to be involved with it, of a hijacking aircraft. We had American Airlines donate an aircraft to us, so we can do it off the side, one of the side hangars out there. And we were going to simulate a hijacking. Have negotiators. We have the negotiators that serve as the hijackers. Then we'd have other negotiators try to negotiate the situation. The FBI would be involved because if the aircraft door is open, it's under the jurisdiction of the FBI. If the aircraft door is closed, it's under the jurisdiction, or vice versa. If the door is open, it's under the jurisdiction of the Port Authority police. Aircraft door is closed because it can take off now. It's under the authority of the FBI because it can cross state lines. But in reality, it would be the NYPD hostage team that would be there first, and NYPD ESU would be there first. So it was going to be a joint kind of venture. We'd all kind of get to play a little bit in practice, more importantly, right? And the night before, there was some stuff going on between the director of the Port Authority Police and then Commissioner Ray Kelly, and he decided to call it off because of some past feud that they were going on. So I had 150 people converging on Kennedy Airport in the morning. I got the word 5 o'clock in the afternoon the night before. So I had to start making 150 phone calls to cancel everybody, right? Because I couldn't put out a telephone message. A lot of people were off already, they might not have gotten the message. So I got Mike to come down to my office and, Mike, here's 75 names. I got 75 names, start making phone calls and start canceling people. So Mike was a great asset in helping me, beside the hostage work, which he was a brilliant negotiator, by the way. But the administrative part of it, because I had no staff, so Mike was always there to lend a hand. And big shout out to you, Mike.
Go ahead, Pete.
No, I remember the only staff that Hugh had was the young lady. Was it Rafaela?
Rafaela Valdez, may she rest in peace. We kiss her. She wasn't with me; she was with Hugh McGowan. Right. And then they had the Operation All Out. When they were short on police, and they started sending everybody out. So they wound up, transferring her, Rafaela, to a detective squad. And then she would have to go out in uniform. So she said, I've been doing this for 25, 30 years. And so she finally didn't retire. But she was, oh my God, what a great lady she was.
Yeah.
It was very Mike Fanning was the ultimate negotiator because I tried to do the Irish blow many times and he talked me into staying. So I'm just going to say. I have 2 names. And so
Mike Flattery, yeah. Flattery.
I use, we all use a AI clipping program. So I'm going to pause right now and then I'm going to say Detective First Grade Mike Prate and Detective First Grade Chris Gandol.
Oh my gosh.
And then I'm going to clip this, and then all these guys, like these guys were 7-9 squad detectives. They went to, Mike stayed in the 7-9 and did cold cases and all the homicide work in there. And then Chris went on to the Brooklyn North homicide. And all they ever talk about and all they ever show is their HNT stuff. And I'm like, wait, do you not remember when we worked in the squad? And then, so Jack, that's a credit to you. So as commanders, I had a rivalry with you without even really knowing. It's like, no, you're more loyal to us in the 7-9, not Jack.
No, right? Those two are so highly.
This right now because I named them, and they talk like these are I talk to them multiple times a day. Well, a couple of times a week or a month, but text every day, and they're listening or will listen in replay. They think the world of you as well.
Well, thank you. And I can't say enough about those two. They were always out the door. Like firemen when the bell rings, they were right out the door. And they kept me apprised a lot of times. So out of those 45 assignments per month, I get notified for every single one of them. There's a saying, get a name, share the blame, right? Mm-hmm. So they would the wheel would make sure the detective wheel would make sure they always get a name, me, I was notified. And then they'd let me know who was responding. So how it worked was who was geographically closest to the incident. So if it was a Brooklyn North job, depending on where they were, the Brooklyn North detectives would go, negotiators. And oftentimes it would be both Mike and Chris out that door, one of the busiest squads in Brooklyn, particularly Brooklyn North. And they were right at the door, always first up. Like Mike Fanning as well. He was another one that was out the door.
I'm going to do another shout out. John Cornicello, and then following him, like they might not. I don't know because I retired earlier than I wanted to. It's another story for another time. But John Cornicello and Seamus McHugh, two great friends. John before me, Seamus after me, both Brooklyn North Homicide Squad commanders, supportive of the HNT.
They really were. They really were.
Yeah, and these guys are the salt of the earth, and I love them more than anything. And again, like constant text messaging and communication all the time. So, and they are all the same people that also reach out to me again to make sure that, like, holy shit, Jack's coming on. I can't wait to hear.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. A friend of mine called me this morning. Just a quick shout out to Manny DeCastro. So Manny was an agent with the Department of Homeland Security, and he was their team leader on their hostage negotiation team. And we did some training with Homeland Security. So he said he's a big fan of your show, both of you. He mentioned both of you are a great host, and he was happy to see that I'd be on tonight. So shout out to you, Manny, and thank you for watching.
All right, Pete's going to get so mad because he really likes a 2-hour limit, but you're going to have to suck it. Buttercup, I'm getting up at 3:30 in the morning tomorrow for a 6 a.m. flight. So you're staying at home. I know, Pete. I know your schedule. So you got to suck it up.
Apologies to you, Peter.
Oh, it's benign prostate hypertrophy is what it's called. But hey,
so
I can always run to the bathroom.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Pete. Finish up.
I did.
Okay. I'm sorry. So you got a little. You've been in Italy, Jack. So talk about some of the people you've met in your journeys, consulting, training in Italy, or around the world, because I can't tell if it's all.
So this is the Polizia Municipale, so the municipal police, local police. This is in a town called Macerata. It's north of Milan. And I was there for a few days doing some training, and I just went to introduce myself. I gave some coins, and I thanked them for their service and some NYPD patches, and they were gracious. This is Guardia di Finanza, so the kind of the customs police out there. This is, I think, in Bologna, as I recall. So very nice. So 2 years ago, I did actually a training for just police, all the different branches of the police in Calabria, which is at the tip of the boot of the map. And that was the Guardia di Finanza you're looking at now. That's where I met this gentleman here. The Carabinieri, the Municipali, the Stato, the state police, so all the different police agencies. And I had to work with the translator because I just have a very limited vocabulary with the Italian language. So I spoke through a translator, and it was very well received. I got to tell you, for me, more than for me. So it did my heart good to do it.
So I have a question for you. So I thought, and then finding out your third generation, because you said your grandparents were born in Italy, and then your parents were born here.
Correct.
And then, so you don't speak Italian at all.
Just a few. I mean, I can get by a little bit, but no.
You ever call people Sfacim?
Sfacim.
Good, Pete. What? I'm sorry?
Oh, Sfacim. My grandfather used to call me Sfacim.
So how did you get? Is it a coincidence or because of the Italian name? Like, how did you get so embedded with Italy? Like, how did that become the primary thing?
How it kind of started. So a friend, now a very dear friend of mine, his name is Marcello Mantini. He's from this town, Macerata, I just mentioned. So he has a very big company out in Italy where he does all kinds of different trainings and large-scale trainings. I'm not talking about 750 people in the audience of these corporate negotiators I mentioned earlier, business managers, attorneys, those kind of things. And I think it was around 2012 maybe. So it's been a while ago. Through a mutual friend of mine who in Italy, he thank you, Detective Nolan. I appreciate that. He wanted to bring some more internationally based speakers. So my name was recommended by this mutual friend. He goes, all right, let's bring him down. So I went down there, and I kind of had a design because all my training was designed for police officers, for detectives, negotiators. So I had to modify it and kind of, bring it to the corporate entity, how it would be applicable in that environment. And I did. Again, it was the first time that I kind of did it, but it seemed to have worked. They seemed to have liked it. I got very nice reviews on it. And I did some police stories as well. So there's a certain mystique to police work if you're not in that field. So I kind of exploited that a little bit by bringing in those police stories, but also applying it to the lesson of negotiations. How does this apply in this context? So it seemed to have worked nicely. And then he invited me back again. And in fact, I think it was 2019, he pushed me into HNT 318. I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds like one of our negotiators. Hello to you, and thank you for commenting. So back in 2019, he convinced me to write a book that he was going to translate into the Italian language. And when I would go and speak, they'd sell the books, So the book is called Parliamone, which means in English, let's talk about it. So I did that, and like I said, every time I go, they sell books and so on. I think you have a picture someplace, Tom, if you come up with it. But anyway, I have the English version of it. I'm just going a final read through of it, and then I'll look to publish it maybe hopefully by the summer in English. I'll go through Amazon and and it's not that I have any great anticipation or expectations. There you go, of making any money on this book. It's not my purpose, but rather just to kind of memorialize what I've done for my grandchildren one day. By the way, hello, Juliana. Hello, Antonio, if you get to watch this. And just so they say when I'm long, moved on and gone, that was my grandpa wrote that book. So that, for me, that's what it's all about. I'm not looking to make any money on this. I'm not expecting to make any money on this. In fact, this book here, I only make €2 per book, because the publishing company, they have to pay the publishing company, the artwork, the book, and all that. But again, it's not about the money for me. So,
Pete, you know about this?
I know that feeling very well. I know. Yeah.
Oh, do you know? You wrote a book, Peter?
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on.
Yeah. I wrote a book about Operation Fast and Furious, Jack. I was one of the whistleblowers on that mess. I was not involved in that case.
Oh my gosh!
I fought them tooth and nail. But yeah, I wrote the book. I'm still upside down about 25,000 bucks.
Okay. Is that available on Amazon? I guess, right?
It is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You email me your address. I'll send you a signed copy.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. And when mine ever does come out, I'll send it to you guys as well.
Hold on. Last week we had a virtual coin swap between Ron Layson, right, and Morgan Wright. So this week we have a virtual book signing swap between Jack and Pete. So after the fact, you guys will send each other. And I want to get a signed copy too, Jack, of course.
It's not.
I need multiple copies.
There you go. And here you go.
Copies because my son needs to hear it as well. But here's the thing, Jack. You said something that is really important to Pete and I, because we've talked about this extensively. That you said your grandkids could see this and listen to this. That's what happened with Joey Herbert, because he did our podcast 2 months before he passed away. And his wife, Barbara, passed away 6 months before that. And he has a single daughter who is married, and they have a 2-year-old grandchild, a daughter. And he said, like, my wife died, and like the guy is like done so much in the NYPD. And he said, Barbara passed away. I have a single daughter. I have a grandchild. And that's what my life is about. My 2-year-old granddaughter. And then he passed away. So like, it was really important for Pete and I. We didn't plan it this way, but it just happened that like, this is his last memorial. This is his last legacy. So we hope, of course, Jack, you collect forever, and the pension fairy keeps blessing you, and you live a long, valuable, productive life and contributing to law enforcement all across the globe. But you know what? Like, this story needs to be told, and that's why we're here today.
And you memorialize for Joe's family, his daughter at least, and his grandchildren, that episode. That's always there, that they can now watch that anytime they want. So thank you.
So Joey's a great friend, so I appreciate that. Pete, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's an honor to do that. I mean, look, there's certain people out there whose stories deserve to be told, so that future generations can learn from them. And you're one of them, Jack.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Pete and Tom. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go into a little fun, and then we're gonna wrap it up, because Pete is he's texting me, but I'm not.
I'm not taking my hand. I have my arms folded. This witness.
It's like, fucking wrap it up. Wrap it up.
That's
funny. I'll go on forever. Pete, you want to go on till midnight? We'll go to midnight. You want to go to midnight?
No, but
all right.
I'm here for you, brother, and for Jack. Look at that.
Where's that, Tom? You know where that is?
Venice.
That's
my
right.
favorite city on the entire planet.
Yeah, beautiful city. Beautiful city.
So Jack, tell me if I'm wrong. As a Catholic, the churches, the basilicas, I went into the most humble churches in Venice.
Countless, yeah.
And I was blown away.
Yeah, countless. And I was walking in the streets. They had all these, how do I even describe them? They were platforms, but they were all up against the wall, big stacks. And I asked, what's that about? So oftentimes, the city floods over. So the city workers, they erect these platforms so people can walk on them, so they don't get their clothes all wet as they're walking through the streets. So they have it pretty much figured out over there. It was a beautiful, interesting city, and the food, of course, was amazing. As always.
So amazing. So let's see what else we got. Let me see. Let me find some other. Did I pull this one up? So where was this?
So this is in the Milan region. Bosch, a very famous worldwide company, and they invited me to come speak to their corporate managers and attorneys and all of that. So that was a nice experience. They treated me very nicely over there. So again, it's a worldwide company rather. Yeah, nice experience.
So where else have you consulted? What other countries across the globe?
Well, again, I've been. I mentioned Israel, Switzerland. I've been to Greece, the Cuba thing. Where else? So, but it's a unique experience each time I go, and I can't tell you how nice people are out there. And they really embrace you, and they treat you with just dignity and respect. And so I enjoy doing it. I really do.
Okay. So now, since you mentioned it at the beginning, and I appreciate your research.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So
that
talk
was in
about
Milan in a restaurant. So I ordered a steak, and this is what they come out with. That's like can feed like 10 people. No, 5 people anyway, right?
Magnificent.
Oh my! And it was amazing. It really was. Bistecca.
So there's I'm a big steak guy. Pete as well. We talked about this a lot. New York, Peter Luger's. I'm sure you've had your fair share of meals at Peter Luger's.
Oh my gosh, yes, I love Peter Luger's. I do.
Keen's, Old Homestead, all the New York steakhouses, right?
They had today. They featured Delmonico's.
Yeah, Delmonico's, of course.
They showed it on the news just this morning. They were talking about that was the first restaurant where women were allowed to go by themselves to dine. Before that, they had to be accompanied by a man. Otherwise, they wouldn't be permitted to go in.
Wow.
So, like the 100th anniversary or something like that.
So, what city was this, Jack?
This was in Milan. In Milan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for those of you foodies who may be listening, there's a gentleman who was a seventh generation butcher. I think it's 7, 8, 9, whatever. Dario Cecchini. You can go on Netflix. You can find him on all sorts of things. He is the butcher. And Dario Cecchini does a porterhouse, which is, they don't call it this, they call it a loin. That is the greatest steak you could ever do. So it's half sirloin, half filet, and then they render it like with the point, like the T is on the bottom and the bone is pointed up, and then they render it and then they grill it. And it's the greatest steak experience you'll ever experience. And it's bistecca alla Fiorentina.
Oh, sure.
And for an Irish guy, I'm doing the best I can. And that's what they're doing there. Although it was Milan, so it's probably substandard because it's not Tuscany, right? But
they use the white cows there, yeah.
But like, if you want a steak, like that is my bucket list journey. And my wife and I and my 12-year-old son, who was like 7 at the time, we tried to do it, but he was too young and we didn't want to do it with him. But we're going to do it again. And my kids are older. The 2 older boys and their better halves. We're going to try and pull it together. Dario may or may not be with us. He's getting up in the ages, and God willing, he's still around. But that is the ultimate steak journey. So for anyone who cares about steak and beef, that is the steak journey. You can do Peter Luger's. You can do Jose Andreas's beef bazaar, meat bazaar. I don't care. L.A., Chicago, Gibson's, Eagle Frogs, all the New York steakhouses. That is the pilgrimage of steak. So I'm sorry for taking up for 2 minutes, but like I know steak, and that is the only answer. That is the only answer. So
went to a great place last week in Alabama called Perry's Steakhouse. Also excellent steak. Yeah.
No, there's phenomenal places for sure, but my pilgrimage is Tuscany, Dario Cecchini.
When I get out there, I'm going to reach out to you, get that information. I promise.
I'll send you all the links. So let's wrap it up, guys. Like, Pete, like, summarize. Like, how do you feel? What everything is going on right here, and then
how do I feel right now? I feel very hungry. I feel very, very hungry after seeing that steak. To be honest with you, no, hey man, great episode, Jack. Like I said, we've met but never worked together, and it's always been, just showing up at a scene, and you were there doing your thing, and I dropped Benny off and stayed around till he was done. But no, great experience. I enjoyed hearing your story today. Always thought the world of you just based on your reputation alone. You're one of those.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. No, it was a pleasure indeed. I would like to talk to my friends and say hello to everybody out there. So thank you again for both for inviting me. Greatly appreciate it. Chief,
Chief, not inspector. Not
when I worked for him, he was an inspector. So I'm sorry I got that wrong. I was out of touch.
Beefsteak Charlie's all the shrimp you can eat.
Always a gentleman, the chief. No. He'd always listen to you, and he'd make a final call. But we had a lot of jobs together, as a matter of fact, and he always took into consideration what I had to say on the other side. He was mostly emergency service, that side of it, and we worked together a lot. And I'd make a recommendation, and he'd consider it. And oftentimes, if it made sense to him, he'd go along with it. So hello to you, Chief, and I hope you're doing well.
So Mike Freed, 2261. Very big supporter. Thank you, Jack. Great episode. Good stories. He's a true policeman and NYPD through and through. So thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. A lot going on. I can't pull them up. I'm not a good producer.
Too many. No, that's fine. But I appreciate
we need a producer in the background, and I can't talk and then do that. So for everyone who's got great comments that I would love to pull onto the screen, I can't do it. I just can't multitask. Jack, so I'm going to leave it with this. Pete and I talk about this a lot. Pete quit, and then he went to the ATF, so he's a quitter. That's what it is.
Money,
hey, whatever.
But his law enforcement career is stellar, and then of the highest integrity, bar none. I don't know that anyone. His Fast and Furious whistleblower, my brother right here, took balls to do what he did. So Jack, I'm going to bounce to you. Our profession. I hope the pendulum shifts back to the way it was for us. And all these kids coming on who want to do the right thing. I'm not going to get it. We're not going to do the politics. We're not going to do the criticisms. We're not going to do any of that. But just, Jack, your final thoughts. Cops wanting to do the right thing. The men and women who come on this job to serve, who are compassionate and tough when they need to be tough. I'll leave it to you. It's your show. And then we'll wrap up.
Well, I think the biggest lesson I learned very early on in my career that people we interact with, whether it be hostile people or not, it was never personal. Very, very, very brief story. I was a young ESU officer. We get a call early on a Sunday morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, 7-9 precinct on Bedford Avenue. A 300-pound black woman walking completely naked down Bedford Avenue, all her glory. The precinct gets to the scene. They don't want to deal with this. They call ESU. So my partner and I, Joe Maltezo, respond, and I get the plastic shield, polycarbonate shield, out of the truck, and I go and I stop her because she's walking down the street. And I just stop her, and she lets out on a barrage with me, talking about my race, sexual things I do with my mother, and all that, right? And finally I stopped her. I said, Miss. I said, why are you yelling at me? You don't like me for some reason? Behind the shield, right? And she stops dead in the tracks. She goes, why do you say I don't like you? I said, well, why the things you're saying to me? And she says, officer, make no mistake. There's only one way that you would know that I don't like you. And that would be 1 second before you die, you see my face. And when she said that, the marble dropped in. What she was saying to me, officer, I'm crazy as hell. And you're taking this personally. It's not personal. So I thank that woman all those years ago for teaching me that valuable lesson that it's not personal. So that's what I would say to the young officers when you get involved with in a confrontational type situation. Remember, it's not personal. They're not lashing out at you, that individual behind that uniform, but rather just the uniform and what you represent. You represent authority, oppression to these individuals. So, but it's not you. They don't know you. You don't know them. So don't take it as such.
Yep. Well, so to all the kids on the job coming up, and Jack, so Pete knows this. People say to me, Tommy, what are you doing? You're vocal, you're this, you're that. I go, all my kids that were on the Little League teams, they're all detectives. They're all cops, detectives, and sergeants now. I have a sergeant who's going to make lieutenant soon. Like, I can't even fucking believe this, Jack. Like, one of my Little Leaguers is going to be a lieutenant in the New York City Police Department soon.
Good for him.
My son is a DC cop. Pete's got kids on the job in the federal space. Like, come on, man. Why do I care? Let me tell you why I care. You want to know why I care? Pete, why do you care?
Because it's a legacy, number one. Number two, the profession matters, man. You know, I mean, it's a noble profession. Our kids followed in our footsteps because we believed in the job. You know, I mean, so it's not something you just walk away from. We care about it.
So we're gonna tell the stories that need to be told, so that I hope there's some 1-year kid who just got on the job. Or there was an academy graduation. Jimmy Norma, call out to you, Jimmy Jr., third generation. He did a pop in on Mike Fanning's show the other day. You need to listen to this. You need to listen to Jack Cambria. You need to hear him. You need to hear the way it was and what you expect your leadership to look like, and then to go forth and how you care for the community.
Thank you. Thank you. I love my job.
That's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this. Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, Pete's book, everybody, you saw it before, peterjforcelli.com, Amazon, Google Books. You guys all got Jack Cambria's, jackcambria.com for his books and his, and then to connect with us, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Please follow us. And with that, we're going to wrap up. Jack, please stay on for a little green room debrief. Make sure everything was okay. It'll take about 20 seconds, and then we'll wrap up. Pete's going to dig into me because we're 30.
Sorry, Pete. I don't dig into
No,
you.
Pete's got a hard stop on 2 hours.
I have a limited attention span.
Then he's gonna give me shit.
I have a limited attention span. That's why I would have never been a good negotiator. I just at 2 hours. I'm
on outside.
You're on your own, buddy. Do what you're gonna do. I'm out.
Okay, so I do have. This is fascinating for all the listeners. Live streaming on X Twitter is experiencing issues with live streaming posts. So if you find your live X, you can manually post it, blah, blah, blah. Like X has been like shitting the bed for us like recently. And then LinkedIn about 2 months ago. So I don't know what's going on, but we're going to do, Jack, I'm going to predict we're going to do 3,000 views for you.
Oh my goodness. Whoa.
Yeah. So
when Tom first asked me and Pete, if I'd come on the show, I said, I'd be delighted, but I'm not sure how many people are going to tune in. So that's very nice to hear. Thank you.
No, and I think your story needs to be told. And if we hit 3,000 views, that's my prediction. Let's look at this. One good-looking guy, Jack. Like I could pull up all
thank you,
these.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
But Jack, and I want to follow up with you. And how do we help you moving forward with this and promoting this? And I'm going to do a bunch of clips. Pete and I will chop these up and give you like segments and all that stuff. So everybody, love everybody. I got to get up at 3:30 in the morning for an early flight. But Pete, you're gonna like sleep in till 8 a.m. because you're a lazy sack, right?
Yeah.
And then Jack, God bless you. Thank you for everything you've done. You are the model of the New York City Police Department, at least in my era and Pete's era. I don't think we'd argue with that.
You're kind. Thank you.
And then Louis Anamone even commented on one of our social posts, like a gentleman, and a bunch of other leaders. And Louis Anamone's coming on in a couple of weeks. So
I look forward to that one too. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his as well. Always was. So
you know what, Jack? Maybe you do a pop-in. You can come in and, and you should pop in.
Chief. Okay.
We'll talk about that. All right, everybody. Please stay safe. God bless. New York City.
Good night, everybody, and thank you for
United States
joining
of
us.
America.